Chapter 1: The Merge. Shenmue sat in his small apartment in the bustling city of Longhai, the glow of his high-end gaming computer illuminating his tired face. It was midnight, and he'd been grinding for hours in Mythos Online, the wildly popular MMORPG that had captured the world's attention for years. His character, Xianyuan Yi, a shadow sovereign known for unparalleled mastery of stealth and combat, was nearing max level. For Mu, this wasn't just a game, it was his escape from a mundane reality. Fired from his job and unsure of his future, he poured his energy into perfecting his in-game build. With the latest update having just launched, he was determined to stay ahead of the competition. Just as he distributed his carefully earned skill points, a strange notification appeared on his screen. System initialization, synchronizing with reality. What? Mu muttered, his eyes narrowing. Before he could react, the screen erupted in a brilliant flash of light. He shielded his face as a strange hum filled the room, then everything went silent. When he opened his eyes, Mu found himself standing in a city that looked like Longhai, but it wasn't quite the same. The skyline was dotted with glowing runes, and holographic status screens floated above people's heads. Panic and confusion spread as people screamed, testing their newfound abilities. A soft chime sounded in Mu's ear, and a translucent screen appeared before him. Welcome, Xianyuan Yi. The game has merged with reality. Mu's breath hitched. His in-game stats and abilities were now real. But as he examined his interface, his jaw dropped. Skill points, unlimited. For a moment, he could only stare, his mind racing. Others around him were struggling to adapt to their abilities, but he had no limits. A slow smile spread across his face. This world just got a lot more interesting. Chapter 2: Awakening Power. Shenmue walked through the chaotic streets of Longhai, his senses sharper than ever. Everywhere, people were testing their new abilities. A merchant accidentally summoned a fireball, incinerating his stall. A young man leapt several meters into the air, only to crash into a lamppost. But while others fumbled, Mu thrived. He opened his status screen, scrolling through the familiar interface. Unlimited skill points. Let's see what you can do. He began experimenting, starting with basic attributes. Strength, agility, and intelligence were all maxed out instantly. His body tingled as he felt an almost supernatural surge of power. His muscles became lean and strong, his reflexes lightning fast. Next, he turned to skills. In Mythos Online, players had to specialize in one class: mage, warrior, rogue, or healer. But with unlimited skill points, Mu unlocked every skill tree simultaneously. Fire magic, swordsmanship, stealth techniques, alchemy, he had it all. Testing his abilities, Mu created a ball of flame in one hand and a blade of ice in the other. With a flick of his wrist, he summoned a shadow clone, which mimicked his every move. His laughter echoed through the streets. As he experimented, a cry for help broke through his concentration. Mu turned to see a gang of low-level thugs cornering a shopkeeper. Their status screens floated above them. LV-5 Bandit. Child's Play. Mu stepped forward, his presence commanding. Leave him alone. The bandits sneered. Get lost, hero. This doesn't concern you. Mu sighed. You've made a mistake. With a single thought, his shadow clone lunged, striking the first bandit. Mu followed, his movements a blur as he disarmed and incapacitated the rest. The fight was over in seconds. The shopkeeper stammered his thanks, but Mu barely heard him. He was too busy analyzing his abilities. If this was what he could do with just a fraction of his power, the possibilities were endless. Chapter 3: The First Challenge. News of Mu's exploits spread quickly, earning him the nickname Waniaman, or Master of All Skills. But not everyone welcomed his rise. In the city's underbelly, a shadowy faction called the Heifeng, Black Wind, began consolidating power. Composed of former gamers who thrived on chaos, they saw the merger of game and reality as an opportunity to dominate. Their leader, Kang Wei, was a ruthless strategist who quickly took notice of Mu's abilities. Unlimited skill points, Kang Wei mused, studying a holographic projection of Mu. If that's true, he's either our greatest threat or our greatest weapon. The Haifeng made their move at sunrise. Mu was patrolling the streets when he heard explosions nearby. Racing toward the noise, he found a group of armed fighters attacking a marketplace. Their leader, a towering man with a scarred face, spotted Mu and grinned. "You must be Wanyuan," the man said, hefting a massive axe. "Kong Wei sends his regards." Mu didn't waste words. The fight began with the leader charging, his axe swinging in a deadly arc. But Mu sidestepped effortlessly, countering with a well-timed fireball that sent the man sprawling. The other fighters attacked in unison, but they were no match for Mu's mastery. He weaved through them, using fire, ice, and shadow to dismantle their formation. Within minutes, the marketplace was quiet once more. As the last enemy fell, Mu couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Chapter 4: Forming Alliances. Despite his overwhelming power, Mu knew he couldn't protect the city alone. The Haifeng were organized, and more factions would emerge as people adapted to their new abilities. Mu began seeking out other skilled individuals to form an alliance. Among them were Li Mei, a former healer in Mythos Online who now ran a makeshift clinic for the injured. Her calm demeanor and resourcefulness made her invaluable. Zhao Chang, a tank-class player with unmatched resilience and a booming laugh. Despite his gruff exterior, he had a strong sense of justice. Feng Lan, a rogue who had turned her stealth skills into an art. Quick-witted and fiercely independent, she was an expert at gathering intelligence. Together, they formed the Tianwei Guild, Skyguard, dedicated to protecting the innocent and restoring order. Mu's reputation as Wanyuan made him a natural leader, and his allies quickly grew to trust his judgment. Their first mission as a team was to secure resources for the city. Facing raiders and navigating dangerous terrain, they combined their skills to outmaneuver every challenge. By the end of the week, they had not only restored stability but also earned the people's trust. Chapter 5: Unveiling the Mystery. As the Tianwei Guild worked to rebuild Longhai, Mu couldn't ignore the deeper mystery surrounding the game's merger with reality. Why had this happened? And why was he the only one with unlimited skill points? While exploring a ruined research facility, the guild uncovered a series of hidden documents. The papers revealed that Mythos Online had been more than a game, it was part of an experimental program designed to prepare humanity for a new era. "This wasn't an accident," Li Mei said, scanning the documents. "Someone planned this." Mu frowned, flipping through the files. Among the names mentioned was Kong Wei, the leader of the Haifeng. But what shocked him most was a reference to himself. Subject Alpha, Unlimited Potential, the file read. Mu's blood ran cold. His abilities weren't a glitch, they were part of the experiment. Someone had given him this power for a purpose. As the guild pieced together the conspiracy, one thing became clear: the Haifeng were just the beginning. A greater threat loomed on the horizon, and Mu would need all his strength and his allies to face it. Chapter 6: Shadows of the Past. The air in the abandoned facility was stale, carrying the faint scent of rust and decay. Mu stood over the open files, his mind racing. The phrase Subject Alpha, Unlimited Potential echoed in his thoughts. His hands tightened into fists. "Someone experimented on us," Mu muttered, his voice low but filled with rage. Li Mei glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "We don't know the full picture yet. But whoever they are, they had to anticipate the chaos this would bring. Which means they planned for someone like Kong Wei to thrive," Feng Lan added, flipping through a stack of documents. She pulled out a blueprint marked with strange runes. "This looks like a server layout, for something much bigger than just a game." Zhao Chang, who had been silent until now, grunted. "We should focus on Kong Wei first. He's too dangerous to leave unchecked. If this Haifeng group keeps growing, they'll crush anyone who resists." Mu nodded. "Agreed. But we need to know what we're up against." The team began combing through the facility, searching for anything that could give them an edge. Mu couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the first time his life had been manipulated. Fragments of his memory, a childhood hospital stay, whispered conversations between doctors began surfacing, but nothing concrete. Finally, Feng Lan called out, holding up a glowing orb. It pulsed with a faint blue light, and strange symbols rotated around its surface. What's that? Zhao Chang asked, peering over her shoulder. Looks like a data core, Feng Lan replied. If we can decode it, we might find out more about the merger, and whoever's behind it. Mu reached for the orb, and the moment his fingers brushed its surface, a surge of energy shot through him. A flood of images overwhelmed his senses, battles, experiments, and a shadowy figure standing amidst chaos. Then, a voice. Cold, calculating, and familiar. You are the key, Xian Yuan Yi. But the question is, will you unlock salvation or destruction? Mu staggered back, his breath coming in short gasps. The orb fell to the ground, dimming. Mu! Are you okay? Li Mei rushed to his side, her hands glowing with a faint green light as she prepared a healing spell. I'm fine, Mu said, steadying himself. His eyes burned with determination. But we need to act fast. Whoever's behind this knows I'm coming. Chapter 7, The Haifeng's Fortress. The guild's search led them to the Haifeng's base of operations, an abandoned skyscraper on the edge of the city. The once imposing structure was now fortified with glowing barriers and patrolled by Kong Wei's men. From their vantage point atop a nearby building, the team observed the fortress. Feng Lan crouched low, her sharp eyes scanning the defenses. Looks like they've got at least 20 guards on the perimeter, she whispered. And those barriers aren't just for show. We'll need to disable them before we can get inside. Leave the barriers to me, Li Mei said, pulling out a pouch of enchanted herbs. I can use a purification spell to disrupt their energy. And the guards? Zhao Chang asked, cracking his knuckles. I'll handle them, Mu said, his voice calm but firm. We'll go in quiet at first. But if things get messy... He glanced at Zhao Chang. You're the backup. The plan was set. As night fell, the team moved into action. Feng Lan led the way, her stealth skills allowing her to slip past the guards unnoticed. She planted small explosive charges on key points of the perimeter, creating distractions that drew the guards away from their posts. Li Mei followed, her hands glowing with soft light as she chanted a purification spell. The barriers flickered, then dissolved, leaving the fortress vulnerable. Now, Mu whispered, signaling Zhao Chang. With a roar, Zhao charged into the fray, drawing the guards' attention with his massive shield and overwhelming strength. The distraction was enough for Mu to slip inside, his shadow magic cloaking him in darkness. The interior of the fortress was eerily quiet, save for the hum of machinery. Mu navigated the hallways with precision, relying on his enhanced senses to avoid detection. Finally, he reached a massive chamber at the top of the skyscraper. There, standing amidst a circle of glowing runes, was Kong Wei. Xian Yuan Yi, Kong Wei said, his tone amused. I was wondering when you'd show up. Mu stepped forward, his shadowy aura swirling around him. You've caused enough chaos. It ends here. Kong Wei laughed, his voice echoing through the chamber. You think this is chaos? This is just the beginning. The real game hasn't even started yet. With a wave of his hand, Kong Wei summoned a group of elite fighters. Their levels were far higher than any Mu had encountered so far, and their synchronized movements showed they were no ordinary thugs. Mu smirked. Good. I was starting to get bored. Chapter 8, The Shadow Duel. The chamber erupted into chaos as Mu faced off against Kong Wei's elites. Fireballs and lightning bolts streaked through the air, clashing with Mu's defensive barriers. His shadow clones darted around the battlefield, confusing his enemies and striking from unexpected angles. Despite being outnumbered, Mu's mastery of multiple skills gave him the upper hand. He switched between magic, melee, and stealth with ease, keeping his opponents off balance. One by one, the elites fell. But as the last fighter crumpled to the ground, Kong Wei stepped forward, a menacing grin on his face. You're impressive, Xian Yuan Yi, he said, unsheathing a massive blade. But let's see how you fare against someone who's not afraid to break the rules. Kong Wei's aura flared, and his level shot up dramatically. Mu's eyes widened as he realized what was happening.
He's using an artifact, Mu muttered, recognizing the glowing amulet around Kongwei's neck.
The item was amplifying his stats far beyond their natural limits. The two clashed, their strikes shaking the chamber.
Kongwei's strength was monstrous, his attacks shattering stone pillars and sending shockwaves through the room.
But Mu's agility and precision allowed him to evade most of the blows, countering with devastating spells and sword strikes.
The battle reached its climax as Mu unleashed his ultimate skill, Eclipse Slash.
Shadows engulfed the room, converging into a single, devastating attack that struck Kongwei with incredible force. When the dust settled, Kongwei lay on the ground, battered but alive. "You're too late," he croaked, blood dripping from his mouth.
"The real enemy is coming." Mu's eyes narrowed. "Who? Who's behind this?" Kongwei laughed weakly. "You'll find out soon enough."
With that, he closed his eyes, unconscious. As Mu stood amidst the wreckage, his team arrived, having fought their way through the remaining guards.
"What now?"
Zhao Cheng asked, his shield still raised. Mu looked down at Kongwei, then at the glowing runes surrounding them.
"We dig deeper. This was just the first boss. The real game starts now." Chapter 9, The Gathering Storm.
The eerie silence of the ruined chamber was interrupted only by the faint hum of the runes still glowing faintly beneath Kongwei's unconscious body. Chen Mu surveyed the scene, his mind racing. Kongwei had been a powerful enemy, but his final words lingered ominously.
"The real enemy is coming."
Li Mei knelt beside Kongwei, her hands glowing as she stabilized his injuries.
"He'll survive, but he's in no shape to fight for a while." "What do we do with him?" Mu's jaw tightened.
"We take him with us. He knows more than he's letting on, and we need answers."
"Won't that make us a target?"
Zhao Cheng asked, leaning on his shield. "We're already targets," Feng Lan interjected, her sharp eyes scanning the chamber. She pointed to the glowing runes.
"These symbols, they're not just decorative. They're transmitting something."
Mu knelt to inspect the runes, his enhanced perception allowing him to decipher the intricate patterns.
"It's a beacon," he said grimly. Kongwei wasn't lying. Someone or something is coming.
Before anyone could respond, the runes flared to life. A deep rumble shook the skyscraper, and the air grew heavy with an unnatural energy.
"We need to leave. Now!" Mu ordered, scooping up the unconscious Kongwei.
As the team raced out of the building, the structure began to collapse behind them. Once they were safely outside, they turned to watch as the skyscraper imploded, disappearing in a cloud of dust and rubble. "That's no coincidence," Feng Lan muttered. "Someone wanted to cover their tracks," Mu agreed. "But this only confirms we're on the right path."
Chapter 10, Interrogation. The Tianwei Guild returned to their base, a repurposed underground bunker hidden beneath Longhai's ruined subway system. It was secure, well-stocked, and isolated, making it the perfect place to regroup and plan their next move. Kongwei was restrained in a reinforced room, his hands and feet bound by enchanted chains. When he finally regained consciousness, his eyes flickered with defiance. "Interrogation? That's not your style, Waniaman," Kongwei sneered. "Or have you finally realized the rules don't matter anymore?"
Mu ignored the taunt, stepping closer.
"You said the real enemy is coming. Who are they? What do they want?" Kongwei chuckled darkly. "You think you're the hero in this story, don't you? But you're just a pawn, like the rest of us." "The real enemy?"
"They're the ones who gave you your power in the first place."
Mu's eyes narrowed. "Who?"
"They call themselves the Architects," Kongwei said.
"They've been planning this for decades.
The game, the merger, all of it, it's their way of testing humanity.
Separating the strong from the weak."
"And you were happy to play their game," Feng Lan said coldly from the corner.
Kongwei smirked. "Better to rule in chaos than be a victim of it." "What's their end goal?" Mu pressed. Kongwei hesitated, his bravado faltering. "They're building something, a gateway.
When it's complete, this world will merge with theirs completely. And trust me, you don't want to see what's on the other side."
The room fell silent as the implications sank in. How do we stop them? Mu demanded. Kang Wei shook his head. You can't. Even if you destroy one gateway, they'll just build another. The only way to win is to become stronger than they ever anticipated. But you're not ready for that. Mu turned to his team, his expression hardening. Then we need to get ready. Fast. Chapter 11, The Training Begins. The team knew they were up against a far greater threat than they had imagined. To prepare, they decided to undergo intensive training, pushing their abilities to the limit. Mu focused on refining his mastery of multiple skill trees. While his unlimited skill points gave him an edge, he realized that raw power wasn't enough. He needed to perfect his techniques and learn how to anticipate his enemy's moves. Zhao Chang honed his defensive skills, experimenting with new ways to absorb and redirect damage. His newfound ability to create force barriers proved invaluable during sparring sessions. Li Mei delved deeper into alchemy and support magic, creating potions and enchantments that enhanced the entire team's capabilities. Her healing spells grew stronger, and she began experimenting with offensive magic as well. Fenglan perfected her stealth and reconnaissance techniques, learning to move like a shadow and strike with surgical precision. Her ability to gather intelligence became a critical asset to the team. As their training progressed, the team's bond grew stronger. They worked seamlessly together, each member playing to their strengths while covering for each other's weaknesses. But Mu knew their time was running out. The architects wouldn't wait for them to be ready. Chapter 12, The First Gateway. Their next lead came from an unlikely source, Kang Wei. While still their prisoner, he seemed eager to help if only to ensure his own survival. There's a gateway under the old Zhongshan temple, he revealed. The architects have been building it for months. If you want to slow them down, that's your best shot. The Tianwei Guild wasted no time. They arrived at the temple under the cover of darkness, finding it guarded by strange, otherworldly creatures. Their status screens identified them as Voidborn Sentinels, level 50. These aren't normal enemies, Li Mei whispered, her brow furrowed. Their energy signatures are alien. Stay sharp, Mu said. We'll take them down together. The battle was intense. The Voidborn Sentinels were unlike anything they had faced before, their attacks warping reality itself. But the guild fought with precision and teamwork, using everything they had learned during their training. When the last sentinel fell, the team descended into the temple's underground catacombs. At the center of the labyrinth, they found the gateway, a massive, swirling portal surrounded by intricate runes. It's incomplete, Fenglan observed. Then let's make sure it stays that way, Mu said, stepping forward. But before they could destroy the gateway, a new enemy emerged, a towering figure clad in black armor, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Void General LV-70. You dare interfere with the architect's plan, the Void General growled, his voice reverberating through the chamber. Mu's eyes narrowed. We don't just interfere. We stop it. The battle began, and the fate of the gateway, and possibly the world, hung in the balance. Chapter 13, Battle Against the Void General. The Void General's presence filled the chamber with an oppressive aura. His black armor shimmered with dark energy, and his massive sword seemed to ripple with power as if it could slice through reality itself. Spread out. Mu ordered, quickly assessing the situation. Li Mei, keep us alive. Zhao, hold the front. Lan, target his weak spots. The Void General wasted no time. With a deafening roar, he charged at Zhao Chang, his massive blade crashing against Zhao's shield. The impact sent shockwaves through the chamber, causing cracks to spread across the ancient walls. That all you got? Zhao growled, digging his feet into the ground and holding firm. His shield glowed with defensive energy, absorbing the brunt of the blow. Mu darted in from the side, his twin daggers coated in shadow magic. He slashed at the Void General's flank, but the enemy was faster than anything they'd faced before. The general spun, parrying Mu's attack with a speed that belied his size. You think you can stop the inevitable? The Void General sneered, his deep voice reverberating like thunder. Your world is already ours.
Fenglan struck from the shadows, her arrows imbued with poison and elemental effects. One of her shots pierced a joint in the general's armor, eliciting a growl of pain. "You talk too much," she said, fading back into the darkness. The Void General raised his sword, dark energy coalescing around it. With a mighty swing, he unleashed a massive wave of energy that tore through the chamber, heading straight for Li Mei. "Li Mei, move!" Mu shouted, but Li Mei stood her ground. Her hands glowed with golden light as she summoned a barrier, the energy wave crashing against it and dissipating. She staggered slightly, but the barrier held. "I can't keep this up forever," she warned, her voice strained. Mu nodded, his mind racing. The Void General was far stronger than any of them individually, but they had one advantage: teamwork. "Lan, keep him distracted. Zhao, press him hard. Mei, keep boosting us." Mu called out. The team worked in perfect synchronization. Fenglan's arrows harried the Void General, forcing him to shift his focus. Zhao Chang charged in, slamming his shield into the enemy and forcing him back. Mu darted in and out, striking at weak points and avoiding counterattacks. Despite their efforts, the Void General refused to fall. His attacks grew more ferocious, his aura intensifying with each passing moment. "We're running out of time," Fenglan shouted. "If we don't finish this soon, the portal might stabilize." Mu gritted his teeth, his shadow magic swirling around him. "Then we finish it now." He activated his ultimate skill, Eclipse Dominion. Shadows engulfed the entire chamber, plunging it into darkness. For a moment, even the Void General hesitated, his glowing eyes scanning the void. "This is my world," Mu said, his voice echoing from all directions. The shadows coalesced into dozens of blades, each one striking the Void General from a different angle. The general roared in pain and fury, his armor cracking under the relentless assault. "Now, Zhao!" Mu shouted. Zhao Chang charged forward, his shield glowing brighter than ever. With a mighty roar, he slammed it into the Void General's chest, shattering the last of his armor and sending him crashing to the ground. The Void General struggled to rise, but Fenglan was already in position. Her final arrow, glowing with a deadly combination of magic and poison, pierced the general's exposed chest. The general let out a final, guttural roar before collapsing, his body dissolving into dark mist. Chapter 14: The Gateway Destroyed. As the Void General's remains faded, the chamber fell silent. All that remained was the swirling portal at the center, its energy pulsing erratically. "It's destabilizing," Fenglan observed. "We need to destroy it now, before it repairs itself." Mu stepped forward, his daggers still glowing with shadow magic. "Cover me. This is going to take everything I've got." The team formed a protective circle around Mu as he began channeling his energy into the portal. The runes surrounding it flared in response, sending out bursts of chaotic magic that the team deflected as best they could. "Come on, Mu, hurry!" Li Mei urged, her healing spells working overtime to keep everyone standing. Finally, with a surge of power, Mu unleashed his magic. The shadows enveloped the portal, consuming it entirely. The runes shattered, and the portal collapsed in on itself with a deafening roar. When the dust settled, the gateway was gone. "We did it," Zhao Chang said, lowering his shield and breathing heavily. "One down," Fenglan said grimly. "But how many more are out there?" Mu stood in the center of the ruined chamber, his expression hard. "We'll find them. And we'll destroy every last one." Chapter 15: New Allies, New Threats. Back at their base, the team debriefed and prepared for the next phase of their mission. Conway, now more cooperative after witnessing their power, provided more information. "There are at least 3 more gateways that I know of," he said, his tone grudgingly respectful. "But the architects aren't going to make it easy for you. Each one will be more heavily guarded than the last." "We'll handle it," Mu said firmly. Conway smirked. "You're going to need more than confidence. You'll need allies, real ones. And I might just know where to find them." The team exchanged glances. "Why would you help us?" Fenglan asked suspiciously. Because as much as I enjoy chaos, Kang Wei said, I'm not eager to see the world overrun by whatever's on the other side of those portals. Besides, you're my best chance at survival.
Mu considered his words.
Fine. But if you betray us, there won't be a second chance.
Kang Wei shrugged. Fair enough.
With their next targets identified and a reluctant ally in tow, the Tianwei Guild prepared to face the challenges ahead. The road would only grow more dangerous, but they were determined to fight until the very end. For the architects, the game was far from over.
But for Mu and his team, this wasn't a game anymore.
It was war.
Chapter 16, A Fractured Alliance. The Tianwei Guild spent the next few days recovering and preparing.
Kang Wei's knowledge of the architects and their operations was proving invaluable, though no one fully trusted him. You said there are 3 more gateways, Fenglan began, her eyes narrowed as she studied Kang Wei.
Where's the closest one?
It's in the Forbidden Zone near the ruins of Xiangqing, Kang Wei replied. The architects use it as a testing ground. They send Voidborn there to sharpen their skills against the few survivors still hiding in the area.
Zhao Chang's brow furrowed. A testing ground? Survivors? That sounds like a trap.
Kang Wei shrugged.
Of course it's a trap. But you're running out of time. The gateways are stabilizing faster than you think. Xiangqing's might already be operational.
Mu stood up, his expression unreadable.
Then we have no choice. We'll head to Xiangqing. But if this turns out to be another of your schemes. Kang Wei raised his hands in mock surrender.
I'll be on my best behavior, I promise. Despite his words, tension hung thick in the air.
Chapter 17, The Ruins of Xiangqing.
The Forbidden Zone lived up to its name. As the team approached the outskirts of Xiangqing, the air grew heavy with an unnatural pressure. The skies above were dark and swirling, the ground cracked and barren. This place gives me the creeps, Li Mei muttered, clutching her staff tightly. It's worse than I thought, Kang Wei admitted. The Voidborn activity here is off the charts.
They must be preparing for something big. As they ventured deeper into the ruins, they encountered the first wave of Voidborn.
These creatures were different from the ones they had fought before, stronger, faster, and more coordinated.
Don't hold back!
Mu shouted as he lunged into battle. The team moved as one, their training paying off as they dispatched the Voidborn with precision.
Zhao Chang's shield absorbed devastating blows, while Fenglan's arrows found their marks with deadly accuracy.
Li Mei's healing magic kept everyone standing, and Mu's shadow skills turned the tide of the battle.
But as the last Voidborn fell, the team realized they were surrounded.
Out of the shadows emerged a group of ragged survivors. Their clothes were tattered, and their faces were gaunt, but their weapons were sharp, and their eyes burned with determination. Hold it right there, a man barked, aiming a crossbow at Mu.
Who are you, and why are you here?
We're here to destroy the gateway, Mu said calmly, lowering his weapons.
The man's eyes narrowed. Destroy it? Or activate it? We've seen enough betrayal to know better than to trust outsiders.
Li Mei stepped forward, her tone gentle but firm.
We're not your enemies. We've been fighting the Voidborn, just like you. Let us help. The man hesitated, then lowered his weapon. If you're telling the truth, we can use all the help we can get. I'm Lin Tao, the leader of what's left of Xiangqing's resistance. Chapter 18, Allies in Desperation.
Lin Tao led the guild to the Resistance's hidden base, a series of underground tunnels reinforced with scavenged materials. Dozens of survivors huddled in the dimly lit space, their faces etched with exhaustion and fear. This is what's left of Xiangqing, Lin Tao said bitterly.
We've been fighting the Voidborn for months, but they just keep coming. Every time we think we've gained ground, they send something worse.
Mu studied the survivors, his expression hardening. The gateway is the source of the Voidborn. If we destroy it, the attacks will stop.
Lin Tao scoffed. Easier said than done. The gateway is heavily guarded, and they've set up some kind of field around it. Anyone who gets too close doesn't come back.
Sounds like a challenge, Zhao Chang said, cracking his knuckles.
We've dealt with worse, Feng Lan added. Lin Tao frowned.
If you're serious about this, we'll help.
But if you fail, you'll be dooming everyone here.
We won't fail, Mu said with quiet determination.
Chapter 19, Breaching the Barrier.
The Resistance provided the Guild with detailed maps of the area around the gateway, as well as supplies and additional fighters. Conway studied the maps alongside Feng Lan, pointing out potential weak points in the Voidborn defenses. The barrier Lin Tao mentioned, it's a disruption field, Conway explained. It interferes with magic and technology. You'll need to shut it down before you can even think about attacking the gateway.
And how do we do that?
Li Mei asked. There's a control node nearby, Conway said. Destroy it, and the field will collapse. The guild set out at dawn, accompanied by a small team of resistance fighters.
As they approached the control node, the Voidborn launched a fierce counterattack.
The battle was chaotic.
The Voidborn seemed endless, their attacks relentless.
But the guild fought with everything they had, their determination driving them forward. Mu reached the control node and plunged his daggers into its core. Dark energy surged around him, threatening to overwhelm him, but he pushed through, channeling his shadow magic to overload the node. With a deafening crack, the disruption field collapsed.
Field's down. Mu shouted. Let's move. Chapter 20, The Final Push. The gateway loomed ahead, a swirling vortex of dark energy surrounded by towering Voidborn constructs.
The guild and the resistance fighters charged into battle, their combined strength clashing against the Voidborn's defenses. Zhao Chang led the charge, his shield glowing brightly as he absorbed devastating blows.
Feng Lan picked off key targets from a distance, her arrows finding weak points in the Voidborn constructs. Li Mei's magic bolstered the fighters, healing their wounds and enhancing their attacks.
Mu fought his way to the gateway, his shadow magic carving a path through the chaos. As he reached the base of the portal, he felt the familiar presence of an enemy waiting for him. Emerging from the shadows was another Void General, this one clad in silver armor and wielding twin blades that crackled with lightning.
Void General, Arcanis LV-75.
You should have stayed in the shadows, Xian Yuanyi, Arcanis said, his voice cold and mocking. Now you'll face the Architect's wrath. Mu raised his daggers, his aura flaring with power. The Architects will fall.
Starting with you. The final battle for Xiangqing's gateway had begun. Chapter 21, The Duel with Arcanis.
The battlefield seemed to hold its breath as Mu faced off against Arcanis. The Void General's silver armor shimmered with energy, his twin blades humming with an electric charge that filled the air with the scent of ozone. Behind him, the swirling portal grew more volatile, the runes surrounding it pulsing like a heartbeat.
Arcanis tilted his head, a smirk curling beneath his helmet. You're strong, Xian Yuanyi. Stronger than most. But strength means nothing without purpose.
My purpose is clear, Mu replied, his voice steady. To stop you and end the Architect's plans. Arcanis raised his swords, lightning arcing between them. Then come, and let me teach you what true power feels like. With a burst of speed, Arcanis launched himself at Mu, his blades striking like twin vipers. Mu barely dodged the first slash, deflecting the second with one of his daggers. The impact sent a jolt of energy through his arm, numbing his hand. He countered with a flurry of shadow-infused strikes, his daggers aiming for the gaps in Arcanis' armor. But the Void General moved with precision, parrying each blow and retaliating with devastating sweeps of his blades.
You'll have to do better than that, Arcanis taunted, slamming his sword into the ground and unleashing a shockwave of lightning.
Mu leaped back, the crackling energy narrowly missing him. He activated Eclipse Veil, shrouding himself in darkness and vanishing from sight. From the shadows, Mu struck with precision, his daggers slicing through Arcanis' armor and drawing black ichor. The Void General growled, his movements growing more aggressive.
You think hiding will save you? Arcanis roared, slashing wildly and sending arcs of lightning through the darkness.
Mu darted around him, his attacks relentless. But for every blow he landed, Arcanis retaliated with twice the force. The Void General's stamina seemed endless, and his strikes grew more unpredictable.
Chapter 22, A Team Effort. The rest of the guild fought desperately to hold the Voidborn forces at bay. Zhao Chang was a wall of defense, his shield absorbing wave after wave of attacks. Foam Lan's arrows rained down from above, each one finding its mark with deadly precision. Li Mei stood in the center of the chaos, her magic weaving a web of protection and healing around her allies. Mu needs help. Foam Lan shouted, her sharp eyes catching glimpses of the duel through the chaos. We're barely holding the line as it is. Zhao Chang replied, his shield glowing with each impact. Li Mei gritted her teeth. Then I'll go. Before anyone could stop her, she channeled her magic into a protective barrier and sprinted toward Mu and Arcanis. As Mu dodged another lightning strike, he saw Li Mei approach, her staff glowing with golden light. Li Mei, what are you doing? You can't win this alone, she said, casting a spell that enveloped him in a protective aura. The energy reinvigorated Mu, his exhaustion fading. He nodded, his determination renewed. Thanks. Let's finish this together. Chapter 23, Turning the Tide. With Li Mei's support, Mu's attacks grew more precise and powerful. Each strike chipped away at Arcanis' defenses, forcing the Void General to shift from offense to defense. Foam Lan joined the fray, her arrows striking the joints in Arcanis' armor. One arrow pierced his shoulder, forcing him to drop one of his blades. You pests! Arcanis snarled, his movements growing more frantic. You dare defy the architects? Zhao Chang charged in, his shield glowing like the sun. And we'll keep defying them until they're gone. With a mighty roar, Zhao slammed his shield into Arcanis, sending the Void General staggering. Mu saw his opportunity. He activated his ultimate skill, Shadow Dominion. The entire chamber was engulfed in darkness, and dozens of shadowy blades formed around Arcanis, striking him from every angle. Arcanis let out a final roar of defiance as the blades pierced his body, his form dissolving into dark mist. The room fell silent as the shadows receded. The Void General was gone. Chapter 24, Destroying the Gateway. The team regrouped around the unstable portal. Its energy was growing more chaotic, the runes flickering erratically. It's not stable, Li Mei said, her eyes scanning the swirling vortex. But it's still dangerous. We have to destroy it completely. Mu nodded. Everyone, focus your attacks on the base of the portal. That's where its energy is concentrated. The guild unleashed everything they had. Zhao Chang's shield slammed into the runes, Foam Lan's arrows shattered the energy conduits, and Li Mei's magic destabilized the portal's core. Mu stepped forward, channeling all of his remaining power into his daggers. With a final, devastating strike, he plunged them into the base of the portal. The room shook as the gateway collapsed in on itself, the swirling energy imploding into a single point before disappearing entirely. When the dust settled, the portal was gone. Chapter 25, The Aftermath. The survivors of Xiangqing emerged from their hiding places, their expressions a mix of relief and disbelief. You did it, Lin Tao said, his voice filled with gratitude. The Voidborn, they're gone. It's only a temporary victory, Mu said, his tone grim. There are still other gateways out there. The architects won't stop. Lin Tao nodded. If you're going to fight them, you won't do it alone. Xiangqing's survivors will stand with you. Mu looked at his team, their exhaustion evident but their resolve unwavering. We'll need all the help we can get. As they prepared to leave, Kong Wei approached Mu. You're making a habit of surviving impossible odds. But don't let it go to your head. The next gateway will be even harder. Mu smirked. Then we'll just have to get stronger. With their allies growing and their determination unshaken, the Tianwei Guild set their sights on the next target. The Architect's game was far from over, but Mu and his team were ready to keep fighting, no matter the cost. Chapter 26, The Shadow of the Architects. The destruction of the Xiangqing Gateway marked a significant victory, but it left the Tianwei Guild with more questions than answers. As they marched back to their base, Conway seemed unusually quiet, his usual smirk replaced by a contemplative frown. What's on your mind, Conway? Mu asked, not breaking stride. You should know, Xin Yuanyi, Conway replied, his voice lower than usual. Destroying the gateways isn't enough.
The architects will keep building more as long as their core remains intact.
Their core?
Zhao Chang asked, glancing over his shoulder.
Kong Wei nodded.
The architects operate from what they call the Central Nexus. It's a massive fortress, hidden deep within the void.
If you really want to stop them, you'll have to take the fight there. Li Mei frowned. How do you know all this? Kong Wei gave a bitter chuckle. Because I used to work for them. The guild froze. What? Feng Lan demanded, her bow drawn and aimed at Kong Wei in an instant.
I didn't have a choice, Kong Wei said quickly, raising his hands.
The architects don't just recruit people. They break them. Enslave them.
I managed to escape, but not without consequences.
Why didn't you tell us this before? Zhao Chang growled.
Because you'd never trust me, Kong Wei replied, meeting Mu's eyes. And because if they find out I betrayed them, they'll come for me and anyone standing with me. Mu studied Kong Wei's face, looking for any signs of deceit.
Finally, he spoke. We're already their enemies. If you have information that can help us, we'll use it.
But if you betray us...
I won't, Kong Wei said solemnly. Not again. Chapter 27, The Call to Arms.
Back at their base, the guild debriefed with their allies.
The survivors from Shangqing were eager to join the fight, but their numbers and resources were limited.
We need to build a proper resistance, Lin Tao said, pacing the room. The Voidborn are scattered for now, but they'll regroup soon enough.
Mu nodded. Agreed.
We've destroyed 2 gateways, but the next ones will be even more heavily guarded.
We'll need reinforcements and better equipment.
Zhao Chang crossed his arms.
What about other guilds?
Surely there are others who would fight with us if they knew what we were up against. It's not that simple, Feng Lan said.
Most guilds are focused on their own survival. They don't see the bigger picture or they're too afraid to act.
Then we'll make them see, Mu said firmly.
We'll send out a call to arms. Anyone who's willing to fight is welcome to join us.
But we'll need to prove that we're capable of leading this fight.
And how do you plan to do that? Li Mei asked.
We take down the next gateway, Mu replied, his eyes blazing with determination.
And we make sure everyone knows about it. Chapter 28, The Scorched Highlands. The next gateway was located in the Scorched Highlands, a treacherous volcanic region filled with lava flows and deadly monsters. Kong Wei had warned them that the defenses here would be even more formidable than before.
As they approached the region, the heat grew oppressive, and the air was thick with ash. The ground beneath their feet was unstable, cracks in the earth revealing glowing rivers of molten rock. This place is a nightmare, Feng Lan muttered, wiping sweat from her brow. Stay focused, Mu said. The gateway is at the heart of this region. If we can reach it, we'll cut off their control over this area. Their journey was fraught with danger.
Lava elementals emerged from the molten rivers, their bodies glowing with fiery energy.
The guild fought them off, but the constant battles drained their stamina. Li Mei kept the team going with her healing magic, but even she was beginning to falter. We can't keep this up forever, she said, her voice strained. We're close, Kong Wei said, pointing to a towering structure in the distance.
The gateway is just ahead.
But be ready, they'll be waiting for us.
Chapter 29, The Molten Warden.
As they neared the gateway, a massive creature emerged to block their path.
It was a towering golem of molten rock, its body radiating intense heat. Molten Warden, LV-72.
This thing looks tougher than anything we've faced before, Zhao Chang said, raising his shield.
It's protecting the gateway, Kong Wei said. We have to take it down if we want to get through.
The Molten Warden roared, hurling massive fireballs at the guild. Zhao Chang deflected one with his shield, but the impact sent him stumbling back.
Spread out. Mu shouted. Don't let it hit us all at once. Feng Lan moved to higher ground, firing arrows at the warden's glowing joints.
The attacks caused small cracks to form, but the creature barely seemed to notice. This isn't working, she called out. Mu activated his shadow abilities, darting around the warden and striking at its weak points. But each attack only seemed to enrage the creature further.
Li Mei chanted a spell, summoning a torrent of water to cool the warden's molten core.
Steam hissed as the water struck, causing the creature to falter.
"It's working," she shouted. "Keep attacking."
Zhao Chang charged in, slamming his shield into the warden's leg and causing it to crumble.
The creature let out a deafening roar, collapsing to one knee. "Finish it, Mu!" Feng Lan shouted.
Mu leaped onto the warden's back, his daggers glowing with shadow energy. With a final, devastating strike, he drove them into the creature's core. The molten warden let out a final, guttural roar before collapsing into a heap of cooling rock.
Chapter 30, Into the Gateway. With the warden defeated, the path to the gateway was clear.
The portal stood in the center of a massive chamber, its energy crackling with unstable power.
"This one is different," Kang Wei said, studying the portal.
"It's more advanced than the others.
Destroying it won't be easy." Mu turned to his team. "We've come this far. We're not stopping now."
As the guild prepared for the final assault, the portal began to pulse with dark energy. From within the vortex, a figure emerged, a humanoid voidborn clad in dark robes, its eyes glowing with malevolent light.
"I am Overseer Caliph," the figure intoned, its voice echoing ominously. "You have meddled in the architect's plans for the last time."
Mu raised his daggers, his aura flaring with power.
"Then come and stop us."
The battle for the Scorched Highlands Gateway had begun, and the Tianwei Guild was ready to face whatever came.
Chapter 31, The Overseer's Wrath.
The chamber trembled under the presence of Overseer Caliph, his voice echoing with a chilling resonance. The swirling portal behind him intensified, casting shadows that danced across the molten walls.
Caliph's robe, woven with void energy, shimmered with unnatural light.
His mere presence made the air heavier, suffocating.
"You mortals believe you can challenge the architects?" Caliph hissed, extending his bony fingers.
"You are nothing but pawns in a game far beyond your comprehension." Without warning, Caliph raised his hand, unleashing a torrent of dark energy.
The wave surged toward the guild, its force threatening to consume everything in its path. "Scatter!" Mu yelled, diving to the side.
Zhao Chang raised his shield, bracing himself as the energy crashed against him. The impact sent him sliding back, but his shield held firm.
"You'll have to hit harder than that," he growled. Caliph smirked. "As you wish."
The Overseer conjured twin blades of void energy and descended upon the team with unnatural speed. He engaged Mu first, his strikes a blur of motion. Mu parried the attacks, but each clash sent vibrations up his arms, numbing his hands.
"This guy is no joke." Mu grunted, rolling away from a downward slash. "Cover him." Feng Lan shouted from her perch, firing arrows aimed at Caliph's exposed flanks.
The arrows, imbued with precision magic, struck true, but Caliph waved a hand, dissipating them into black mist. Li Mei began chanting, her staff glowing with golden light.
A healing aura enveloped the guild, rejuvenating their strength. "Stay focused," she called out. "We can wear him down." Chapter 32, The Strength of the Guild.
Zhao Chang charged at Caliph, his shield shimmering with radiant energy. "Try deflecting this," he bellowed, slamming the shield into Caliph's chest.
The impact forced the Overseer back, his void blades momentarily flickering. Mu seized the opening, dashing forward and landing a series of shadow-infused strikes on Caliph's torso. Caliph hissed in pain, his composure cracking. "You dare wound me? I will show you despair."
The Overseer thrust his hand into the air, summoning void tendrils that erupted from the ground. The dark appendages lashed out, forcing the guild to scatter.
Feng Lan leaped from her perch just as a tendril shattered the ledge.
"These things are everywhere," she exclaimed, firing arrows to cut them down. Li Mei channeled her magic into a barrier, shielding the team from the relentless assault. "I can hold this for a while, but we need to disrupt his control over those tendrils."
"Kang Wei, any ideas?" Mu shouted as he dodged another tendril.
Kang Wei, who had been analyzing the battle from the sidelines, nodded. The tendrils are connected to him.
If we disrupt his focus, they'll disappear. Hit him hard and fast. Got it. Mu called out. Everyone, focus on Caliph. Chapter 33, Breaking the Overseer.
The guild coordinated their attacks with precision. Zhao Chang and Mu engaged Caliph directly, keeping him occupied while Feng Lan and Li Mei targeted the tendrils to reduce the pressure on the battlefield.
Caliph growled, his movements growing more erratic. You cannot win. The architect's will is absolute.
Your architects are nothing but cowards hiding behind their pawns.
Mu retorted, his daggers glowing with dark energy.
He activated Eclipse Veil, disappearing into the shadows and striking Caliph from all sides. The overseer staggered, his void blades faltering. Li Mei saw her chance and unleashed a spell that sent beams of light crashing into Caliph, burning away the dark energy surrounding him.
Impossible.
Caliph snarled, his form flickering.
You are mere mortals. You cannot.
Before he could finish, Zhao Chang charged forward, slamming his shield into Caliph with enough force to crack the ground beneath them.
Caliph fell to one knee, his void blades disintegrating. No. This is not how it ends.
It is for you, Mu said coldly, driving both daggers into Caliph's chest. The overseer let out a final, guttural scream before his body dissolved into dark mist, leaving behind a shimmering crystal.
Chapter 34, The Gateway's Collapse. With Caliph defeated, the gateway began to destabilize. The swirling vortex pulsed erratically, cracks spreading across its structure. We need to destroy it now.
Conway shouted, his voice barely audible over the rumbling chamber.
On it.
Mu replied, grabbing the crystal left behind by Caliph. It radiated void energy, but Mu could sense its power could be turned against the gateway. Li Mei, help me channel this into the portal, he called out.
Li Mei nodded, rushing to his side. Together, they focused their energy on the crystal, directing its volatile power into the gateway.
The portal's energy surged, its structure collapsing in on itself.
Everyone, get back! Zhao Chang shouted.
The team retreated as the gateway imploded, releasing a shockwave of energy that rocked the chamber. When the dust settled, the portal was gone, and the room was silent.
Chapter 35, A Growing Resistance.
The guild returned to their base, weary but victorious.
News of their success spread quickly, attracting new allies from across the region.
Fighters, mages, and strategists joined their cause, bolstering their ranks.
Lin Tao approached Mu, his expression one of gratitude and respect. You've proven yourselves time and again. The people are starting to believe in this fight. You're giving them hope. It's not just about hope, Mu replied. We need to be stronger, smarter.
The architects won't stop, and neither will we. Conway stepped forward, a rare seriousness in his eyes. If we're going to take this to the next level, we need to target the heart of their operation, the central nexus.
Feng Lan frowned.
We barely survived the gateways.
How are we supposed to fight them on their home turf? Conway smirked.
That's the fun part. We'll need to steal something from them, a key to the nexus.
I know where to find one. Mu's eyes narrowed. Then that's our next target.
The architects think they can control this world, but we'll show them otherwise. As the guild prepared for their next mission, the stakes had never been higher. The fight against the architects was far from over, but the Tianwei Guild was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.
Chapter 36, The Nexus Key.
The Tianwei Guild gathered in the war room, a newly reinforced section of their base. Maps and plans were spread across a large wooden table, lit by flickering lanterns. Conway stood at the head, his smirk gone as he outlined the details of their next mission. The Nexus Key is kept in a fortress deep in the Voidlands, he began, pointing to a jagged region marked on the map.
This fortress isn't just any stronghold.
It's a central hub for the architects' operations. They use it to monitor their gateways and coordinate their forces across the region.
What kind of defenses are we talking about?
Zhao Chang asked, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword.
High-level Voidborn elites, automated sentries, and traps that make the Scorched Highlands look like a playground, Kang Wei replied. And that's just the outer defenses. Inside, we'll face Void Weaver's powerful mages who control the fortress. Fenglan frowned. Sounds like a death trap. Do we have any intel on weaknesses? Kang Wei hesitated. There's a way in a hidden passage I used when I escaped. But it's risky. If they've discovered it, we'll walk straight into an ambush. Mu crossed his arms, his eyes scanning the map. We don't have a choice. If we're going to stop the architects, we need that key. We'll take the risk. Li Mei nodded. Then we need to prepare. This won't be like the other battles. If we fail here, it could set us back for good. Chapter 37, Into the Voidlands. The journey to the Voidlands was grueling. The region was a desolate wasteland, its skies perpetually darkened by swirling storms of void energy. The ground was cracked and barren, with jagged spires of obsidian jutting up like the bones of a long-dead beast. Every step was fraught with danger. Voidborn patrols roamed the area, their glowing eyes scanning for intruders. The guild moved carefully, avoiding unnecessary confrontations, but the tension was palpable. We're close, Kang Wei said as they reached the edge of a massive chasm. Across the abyss, the fortress loomed, a dark, angular structure pulsating with ominous energy. How do we get across? Fenglan asked, eyeing the wide gap. There's a bridge, Kang Wei said, pointing to a narrow, rickety structure made of black stone. But it's heavily guarded. We'll need to move fast. The guild prepared for battle. Zhao Chang led the charge, his shield glowing with protective energy. Arrows from Fenglan rained down on the Voidborn guards, clearing a path for the team. Mu and Kang Wei darted ahead, using their agility to take out sentries before they could raise the alarm. Li Mei stayed behind, casting barriers to protect the team from enemy fire. The bridge groaned under their weight, but they made it across just as reinforcements arrived on the other side. We can't stop now, Mu shouted, leading the team toward the hidden passage. Chapter 38, The Hidden Passage. The entrance to the passage was concealed behind a jagged outcrop of obsidian. Kang Wei pushed aside a loose rock, revealing a narrow tunnel leading into the fortress. This way, he said, motioning for the team to follow. The passage was cramped and dark, the air thick with the smell of sulfur. The team moved cautiously, their weapons at the ready. I don't like this, Fenglan muttered. It's too quiet. Her words proved prophetic. As they reached the end of the tunnel, a trap was triggered. Void energy surged through the walls, sealing the entrance and exit. Ambush! Kang Wei shouted as Void Weavers appeared, their glowing staffs crackling with energy. The battle was chaotic. Void Weavers summoned spectral beasts and rained down bolts of void energy, forcing the guild to fight in the confined space. Mu activated Eclipse Veil, using the shadows to take out the mages one by one. Zhao Chang and Li Mei held the line, protecting the team from the brunt of the attacks, while Fenglan picked off enemies with deadly precision. After a fierce struggle, the Void Weavers were defeated, and the energy barrier dissipated. They know we're here, Kang Wei said grimly. We need to move fast. Chapter 39, The Heart of the Fortress. The guild emerged into the inner sanctum of the fortress. The walls were lined with pulsating runes, and the air hummed with power. At the center of the chamber was the Nexus Key, a crystalline orb suspended in a web of void energy. It's beautiful, Li Mei whispered, her eyes wide. And dangerous, Kang Wei said. That thing is the key to the architect's central nexus. But removing it will trigger every alarm in this place. Then we don't have much time, Mu said, stepping forward. Li Mei, can you disable the containment field? Li Mei studied the runes surrounding the key, her brow furrowing. I can, but it'll take a few minutes. Cover me. As she began her work, the fortress came alive. Voidborn soldiers poured into the chamber, their weapons gleaming with dark energy. Here we go again, Zhao Chang shouted, raising his shield. The guild fought desperately to hold the line. Fenglan's arrows flew in rapid succession, each one finding its mark.
Conway used his knowledge of the fortress's layout to outmaneuver the soldiers, setting traps and striking from the shadows.
Mu and Zhao Chang worked together, cutting through the enemy ranks with brutal efficiency. "Hurry, Li Mei!" Mu called out as another wave of soldiers approached.
"Almost there," she replied, her hands glowing as she chanted the final incantation. The containment field shattered, and the Nexus key floated down into Mu's hands.
"Got it," he shouted. "Let's move." Chapter 40: Escape from the Fortress. With the Nexus key in their possession, the guild raced through the fortress, the alarms blaring around them. Voidborn reinforcements swarmed the corridors, but the team fought their way through with determination.
"We're not going to make it at this rate," Fenglan shouted, firing an arrow into the face of a pursuing soldier.
"There's a shortcut," Conway said, leading them down a side corridor. "It'll take us to the outer wall."
The guild followed him, emerging onto a narrow ledge overlooking the chasm.
"Jump!" Conway yelled, pointing to a cluster of shadowy tendrils below. "Are you insane?"
Zhao Chang roared.
"Trust me," Conway replied, leaping off the edge.
One by one, the guild followed, landing safely on the tendrils, which carried them to the other side of the chasm. As they landed, the fortress erupted in a burst of void energy, the destruction triggered by the removal of the Nexus key. The guild watched from a distance as the structure collapsed, their breathing heavy but their spirits high. "We did it," Mu said, holding the Nexus key aloft. One step closer to the architect's downfall. But even as they celebrated their victory, Mu couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger battle.
Chapter 41: Unveiling the Nexus key.
Back at their hidden base, the guild gathered in the main hall, the Nexus key glowing softly on the central table.
Its crystalline form pulsed with faint energy, almost as if it was alive.
Despite their victory, a tense silence filled the room. Li Mei was the first to speak, her voice quiet but firm.
"This isn't just a key. It's something more. I can feel it." Conway nodded. "You're right. The architects don't create anything simple.
The Nexus key is likely connected to their network, not just as a tool, but as a piece of their system itself.
If we use it, they'll know."
"Then we need to figure out how it works, and quickly," Mu said.
"Every moment we waste gives the architects more time to retaliate."
Fenglan leaned forward, her sharp eyes fixed on the key.
"Do we have the resources to study it? This isn't something we can just poke at blindly. We might trigger a failsafe or worse." Li Mei frowned.
"I can start unraveling its structure, but I'll need help."
"This level of magic is unlike anything we've seen." Mu looked at Conway. "Do we have anyone in our network who specializes in void energy? Someone who might be able to help without betraying us?" Conway smirked. "As a matter of fact, I might know someone. But you're not going to like it." Chapter 42: A Risky Alliance.
The following day, Conway led the guild to a secluded outpost on the edge of the scorched highlands. The journey was tense, each member of the group on high alert for potential ambushes. They arrived at a weathered stone tower, its exterior covered in strange runes that glowed faintly in the dim light. As they approached, the door creaked open, and an old man with piercing gray eyes stepped out.
"Ah,
Conway," the man said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I see you're still dragging trouble with you wherever you go." "This is Jin Feng," Conway said, introducing the man to the group. "He's a former Void Weaver who defected from the Architects years ago."
Jin Feng snorted. "Defected is a strong word. Let's just say I got tired of being their pawn." "So, what brings you to my doorstep?" Conway gestured to the Nexus key, which Mu held in a protective case. "We need your expertise. Can you help us figure out what this is and how to use it?"
Jin Feng's eyes narrowed as he studied the key.
"Interesting. Very interesting. This is a powerful artifact, a conduit for the architect's power. But meddling with it will draw their attention. Are you prepared for that?" "We already have their attention," Mu said firmly. "This key is our only chance to strike back." Jin Feng chuckled. "You're either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. Fine, I'll help you. But this won't be easy.
If we make even one mistake, the architects will find us, and when they do, they won't just send soldiers.
They'll send them. Li Mei's brow furrowed. Them? You mean overseers?
Jin Fong shook his head. Worse. Enforcers. The architects' personal executioners. Pray we don't attract their gaze.
Chapter 43, Cracking the Code.
Jin Fong wasted no time setting up his equipment. The tower's central chamber was soon filled with magical arrays, glowing sigils, and delicate instruments designed to analyze the Nexus key structure. Everyone, stay back, Jin Fong warned as he began his work.
The key's energy is unstable. If it reacts poorly to the analysis, it could detonate or worse, open a direct link to the Nexus.
The guild watched anxiously as Jin Fong chanted incantations, his hands weaving intricate patterns in the air. The Nexus key pulsed erratically, emitting bursts of energy that rattled the room. This thing is layered with protections, Jin Fong muttered.
Whoever created it didn't want anyone tampering with it. But I've seen these patterns before. I just need a little more time.
Suddenly, the key flared with blinding light. Jin Fong staggered back, shielding his eyes.
Damn it! It's reacting to something.
Li Mei stepped forward, her staff glowing. It's connected to the void around us.
I can stabilize it, but I'll need your help. Together, Li Mei and Jin Fong channeled their magic into the key, steadying its energy.
Slowly, the light dimmed, and the key returned to its dormant state.
Jin Fong exhaled deeply. That was close. But I've learned enough to move forward. This key isn't just a tool, it's a map. It leads directly to the architect's central nexus. Chapter 44, Preparing for the Final Assault.
The guild gathered around the map Jin Fong had drawn, its intricate lines and symbols marking a path through the void. This is it, Kang Wei said, his voice heavy with determination.
The central nexus.
The heart of the architect's power. If we destroy it, we cripple their ability to control this world. But it won't be easy, Jin Fong warned. The nexus is surrounded by layers of defenses, both physical and magical. And once we use the key to access it, they'll know we're coming. We've faced impossible odds before, Mu said, his tone resolute.
This is no different.
We'll prepare, gather our strength, and hit them where it hurts.
Zhao Chang nodded. We've come too far to turn back now.
Whatever it takes, we'll see this through.
Feng Lan smirked. And if they send their enforcers?
Well, I've always wanted to take down one of their so-called elites.
Li Mei's expression was more cautious. This isn't just about us.
If we fail, it could cost countless lives. We need to be sure we're ready.
Mu placed a hand on her shoulder. We will be. We have to be.
Chapter 45, The Calm Before the Storm. In the days that followed, the guild worked tirelessly to prepare for the assault on the central nexus.
Weapons were sharpened, spells refined, and strategies discussed in exhaustive detail. Mu spent hours training with Kang Wei, honing his skills in stealth and precision.
Zhao Chang led drills with the guild's warriors, ensuring they were ready for the battles to come.
Feng Lan scouted the Voidlands, mapping out potential routes and identifying weak points in the architect's patrols.
Li Mei collaborated with Jin Fong to create protective wards and countermeasures against the Nexus's magic. As the final day approached, the guild gathered one last time, their determination unshaken despite the daunting task ahead.
This is it, Mu said, addressing the group. We've fought hard to get here. We've faced impossible odds and come out stronger.
The architects think they're untouchable, but we're about to prove them wrong. The room erupted in cheers and war cries. Together, they marched into the unknown, ready to face whatever awaited them in the heart of the Nexus.
Chapter 46, Breaching the Nexus Gate.
The void skies churned like a living storm, casting an oppressive gloom over the central Nexus.
The massive structure loomed in the distance, its towering spires pulsating with dark energy.
It was more than a fortress, it was a monument to the architect's power. The guild stood hidden at the edge of the Voidlands, gazing at the challenge ahead. Mu turned to his team, his voice steady despite the gravity of their mission.
This is it. Once we step into their domain, there's no turning back. Stick to the plan, and trust each other.
We're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for everyone they've oppressed. Li Mei nodded, her staff glowing faintly. I've synchronized the Nexus key with Jin Fang's wards. It should give us a short window to breach their defenses undetected. But once we're inside, they'll know we're here. Then we hit hard and fast, Zhao Chang said, hefting his shield.
We cut through their ranks before they can react. Feng Lan smirked.
And if they react, we give them something to regret.
Kang Wei stepped forward, holding the Nexus key. I'll activate the gateway.
Be ready. With a deep breath, he raised the crystal and artifact. The key emitted a blinding light, and the air before them shimmered, revealing a swirling portal.
Move! Mu shouted, leading the charge.
The guild plunged into the portal, emerging in the heart of the central nexus.
Chapter 47, The Architect's Domain. The interior of the nexus was like nothing they'd ever seen.
The walls were made of shifting void energy, constantly morphing and reshaping themselves. Strange symbols glowed faintly in the air, and an oppressive hum reverberated through the chamber.
Stay together, Mu warned. This place is designed to disorient intruders.
As they advanced, they encountered their first line of resistance, Voidborn elites armed with enchanted weapons. These soldiers were unlike the ones they'd faced before, faster, stronger, and utterly relentless. Zhao Chang charged into the fray, his shield absorbing a flurry of strikes.
Push forward. Don't let them box us in. Feng Lan's arrows flew with precision, each one striking a vital point. Kang Wei darted through the chaos, disabling traps and taking down isolated enemies. Li Mei chanted rapidly, summoning barriers and counterspells to protect the group from the Voidborn's powerful magic.
Mu moved like a shadow, his blades flashing as he took out key targets. With a combination of strategy and raw skill, the guild broke through the first wave of defenders.
Keep moving, Kang Wei urged. We're getting close to the core. Chapter 48, The Nexus Core.
The team arrived at the core chamber, a massive, spherical room pulsating with raw void energy. At the center floated the Nexus core, a colossal crystal surrounded by swirling tendrils of light.
This is it, Li Mei said, her voice filled with awe.
The heart of the Architect's network. But their moment of awe was short-lived. The air grew heavy, and a powerful presence filled the chamber.
You've come far, a deep, resonant voice echoed. But your defiance ends here.
From the shadows emerged an enforcer, a towering figure clad in obsidian armor, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. He carried a massive halberd crackling with void energy, and his presence radiated pure menace. An enforcer, Jin Fang whispered.
We're in trouble.
Trouble is what we do best, Mu said, stepping forward.
The enforcer lunged, his halberd cleaving through the air with terrifying speed.
Mu barely dodged the strike, rolling to the side and retaliating with a flurry of slashes. The rest of the guild joined the battle, each member playing their part. Zhao Chang engaged the enforcer head-on, his shield holding firm against devastating blows.
Feng Lan fired precision shots, aiming for the gaps in the enforcer's armor. Li Mei and Kang Wei worked together to disrupt the enforcer's attacks, using magic and traps to create openings for their allies.
The battle was brutal, the enforcer's strength overwhelming. But the guild fought with unmatched determination, exploiting every weakness and supporting each other at every turn. Finally, after a fierce struggle, Mu found an opening. With a burst of speed, he drove his blade into the enforcer's core, shattering the void energy that sustained him. The enforcer let out a final, guttural roar before collapsing, his armor disintegrating into ash.
Chapter 49, Disabling the Core.
With the enforcer defeated, the guild turned their attention to the Nexus core. We don't have much time, Jin Fang said, examining the swirling energy around the crystal. The core is already destabilizing. If we're not careful, it could destroy the entire region and us with it.
Li Mei stepped forward.
I can contain the energy, but I'll need Kang Wei's help to disrupt the core's connection to the void.
Kang Wei nodded. On it.
As the two worked together, Mu, Zhao Chang, and Feng Lan defended them from waves of voidborn reinforcements. The chamber shook violently, cracks forming in the walls as the core's energy spiraled out of control.
Almost there!
Li Mei shouted, her voice strained.
Just a little longer. Kang Wei activated a final sequence of runes, and the core began to collapse in on itself. It's done! Li Mei cried. We need to get out of here now. Chapter 50, Escape and Victory.
The guild raced through the collapsing nexus, the walls crumbling around them. The portal they had entered through flickered dangerously, its stability failing as the nexus disintegrated.
Go!
Mu shouted, pushing his team forward. One by one, they leaped through the portal, emerging back in the Voidlands just as the nexus imploded in a blinding burst of energy. The shockwave rippled through the void, sending a clear message to the architects: their stronghold had fallen. The guild stood in silence, watching the ruins of the nexus fade into the distance.
We did it, Zhao Chang said, his voice heavy with relief. But the fight isn't over, Li Mei reminded them.
The architects will retaliate, and they'll come at us with everything they have.
Mu clenched his fists, his resolve unshaken. Then we'll be ready. This was just the beginning.
We'll keep fighting until we've freed this world from their grip.
The team nodded, their determination burning brighter than ever.
Together, they had achieved the impossible and they were ready to face whatever came next.
Chapter 51, Ripples of Defiance.
The destruction of the central nexus sent shockwaves across the Voidlands. Everywhere, the oppressive presence of the architects seemed to weaken. Their patrols faltered, and the voidborn forces retreated into scattered confusion. The guild's victory had turned the tide of the war, but it also marked the beginning of a far more dangerous phase. In their hidden base, the group reconvened to discuss the aftermath. We've dealt them a massive blow, Kang Wei began, his voice calm but cautious.
But the architects won't stay disoriented for long. This isn't just a victory, it's a declaration of war.
Zhao Chang nodded, leaning on his shield.
They'll be looking for us now.
And they'll send their deadliest forces to retaliate.
That's not all, Li Mei added, placing a hand on the table. The Nexus core wasn't just a power source. It was a central hub. Destroying it disrupted their network, but it also unleashed a surge of void energy into the world. The balance is shifting, and we don't know what that will mean.
Mu stood at the head of the table, his expression grim but resolute.
Then we use this time wisely. We've struck a blow they won't forget.
Now, we need to rally others to our cause.
The more allies we have, the harder it will be for them to crush us. Feng Lan raised an eyebrow. You're talking about an open rebellion. You really think people are ready for that?
They will be, Mu replied.
We've shown them it's possible to fight back.
Now we just need to light the spark.
Chapter 52, Gathering the Flame.
Over the next few weeks, the guild split into smaller teams, each tasked with reaching out to different factions and communities oppressed by the architects.
Mu and Zhao Chang traveled to the Ironclad Bastion, a fortress city ruled by a coalition of human and beastkin warriors. Though fiercely independent, they had suffered greatly under the architects' dominion.
As they approached the city gates, they were stopped by guards who eyed them suspiciously.
State your business, one of the guards demanded.
We're here to meet your leaders, Mu said confidently.
We have news they'll want to hear.
The guards exchanged wary glances but eventually escorted them inside. They were brought before General Huang, a grizzled beastkin with a scar running across his face. You claim to have important news, Huang said, his tone skeptical.
Speak quickly. I don't have time for empty words. Mu stepped forward. The central nexus has been destroyed.
The architects are weaker than ever.
Now is the time to strike.
The room fell silent.
Huang's eyes narrowed, searching Mu's face for any sign of deceit.
If what you say is true, Huang said slowly, then you've done what no one else has dared to do. But why should we trust you?
What proof do you have? Mu reached into his pack and pulled out a fragment of the Nexus core, its crystalline surface still pulsing faintly with void energy. This is all the proof you need.
The architects are vulnerable, but they won't stay that way for long.
Join us, and we can finish what we started. Huan studied the fragment for a long moment before nodding. You have courage, I'll give you that. I'll rally my forces.
But if you're leading us into a trap, I'll kill you myself.
Fair enough, Mu said, extending his hand. Chapter 53, Whispers in the Void.
Meanwhile, Conway and Fonglan ventured into the Veiled Woods, a labyrinth of ancient trees said to be home to rogue mages and exiles. Their goal was to recruit the Whispering Coven, a group of powerful but unpredictable spellcasters. The woods were dark and treacherous, the air thick with magic.
Are you sure this is the right way? Fonglan asked, her voice tinged with irritation. Relax, Conway replied. I have a map.
Sort of.
Sort of?
Before Conway could answer, a figure emerged from the shadows, a pale woman with piercing eyes and a staff made of twisted black wood. You're trespassing, she said, her voice cold.
State your purpose, or leave. Conway raised his hands in a gesture of peace. We're here to speak with the Coven. We have an offer.
The woman studied them for a moment before nodding.
Follow me. But know this, if you're lying, you won't leave these woods alive.
They were led to a clearing where several mages waited, their gazes sharp and untrusting. At the center stood their leader, a tall man with silver hair and an aura of quiet menace.
You've come far to find us, the leader said. What do you seek? Conway stepped forward.
The architects have ruled for too long. We've already dealt them a crippling blow, but we need your help to finish the job.
The leader's eyes narrowed. And why should we help you?
The architect's wrath is not something we take lightly.
Fonglan smirked. Because you hate them as much as we do. And because if we succeed, you'll finally be free of their influence.
The leader was silent for a long moment before finally nodding.
Very well. We'll consider your proposal. But be warned, if you falter, we'll abandon you without hesitation. Chapter 54, Building an Army.
Over the next month, the guild's efforts began to bear fruit. The ironclad bastion pledged its warriors, the Whispering Coven offered their mages, and dozens of smaller factions joined their cause. The guild's hidden base became a bustling hub of activity, filled with soldiers, mages, and volunteers eager to fight. We've come a long way, Zhao Chang said, watching his recruits trained in the courtyard. But the hardest part is still ahead, Li Mei added. The architects won't sit idly by while we build an army. They'll strike soon, and they won't hold back. Mu nodded. Then we'll be ready. This isn't just our fight anymore. It's a revolution. Chapter 55, The Architects Strike Back. Their preparations were interrupted one fateful night when the sky above their base darkened, and an ominous hum filled the air. They've found us! Conway shouted, running into the main hall. Moments later, the ground shook as a massive void portal opened, and an army of voidborn soldiers poured through. Leading them was another enforcer, flanked by two architect overseers. Defend the base. Mu commanded, rallying the guild. The battle that followed was chaos. The Voidborn attacked in waves, their numbers seemingly endless. The enforcer was a brutal force, cutting through their defenses with terrifying ease. But the guild and their allies fought back with everything they had. Li Mei's magic illuminated the battlefield, creating barriers and unleashing devastating spells. Zhao Chang held the line with unyielding strength, while Fonglan and Conway used their agility and cunning to outmaneuver the enemy. Mu faced the enforcer head-on, their clash shaking the very ground beneath them. Despite the overwhelming odds, his determination never wavered. Finally, with a coordinated effort, they managed to turn the tide. The enforcer fell, and the Voidborn army began to retreat. As the dust settled, Mu stood amidst the wreckage, his sword still in hand. They came at us with everything they had, he said, his voice steady. And we're still standing. This is just the beginning. Together, we'll bring the architects to their knees. The guild cheered, their spirits unbroken. The revolution had truly begun. Chapter 56, Consolidating the Rebellion.
The aftermath of the Voidborn assault left the guild's base battered but not broken.
Fires were extinguished, the wounded were tended to, and the fallen were honored with solemn rites.
Yet, amidst the rebuilding efforts, the spark of hope burned brighter than ever. Mu called a council of leaders, including representatives from the Ironclad Bastion, the Whispering Coven, and other allied factions. The main hall, now repurposed as a war room, was filled with maps, intelligence reports, and tactical diagrams.
"We've sent a message to the architects," Mu began, addressing the assembly.
"We're not just survivors. We're fighters. And we're growing stronger every day."
General Huang from the Bastion crossed his arms, his expression stern.
"But strength means nothing if it's not organized.
We need a command structure, a proper chain of command."
Kang Wei nodded. "Agreed. We've grown too large for small-scale operations.
If we're serious about taking the fight to the architects, we need to unify our forces under a single strategy." Li Mei leaned over the central map.
"The Voidborn attacks will only escalate from here.
If we don't establish supply lines, fortify key positions, and secure allies in other regions, we'll crumble under the pressure." The Whispering Coven's leader, Alric, spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "There's also the matter of the void energy released by the Nexus Core's destruction. It's spreading across the land, disrupting natural magic.
Left unchecked, it could become as much of a threat as the architects themselves." Mu nodded, taking in their concerns.
"Then we'll divide our efforts. Zhao Chang, you'll oversee fortifications and defense.
Coordinate with Huang's forces to secure the base and establish supply lines." Zhao Chang saluted. "Consider it done. Li Mei, you and Alric will investigate the void energy.
Find a way to contain it, or better yet, turn it against the architects."
Li Mei exchanged a glance with Alric and nodded. "We'll do what we can. Kang Wei and Fenglan, you'll continue recruiting. There are still factions out there who haven't chosen a side. Convince them to join us." Fenglan smirked.
"You know me, persuasion is my specialty. And I'll focus on planning our next major offensive," Mu concluded. "The architects think they've crushed our spirit. Let's show them how wrong they are."
Chapter 57, The Void's Growing Corruption. Li Mei and Alric delved into the spreading void energy, traveling to areas where its influence was strongest. Their journey took them to a once thriving forest now consumed by an unnatural blight. The trees were twisted, their bark oozing dark liquid, and the air was heavy with an oppressive aura.
"This is worse than I imagined," Li Mei said, her voice barely above a whisper.
"The energy isn't just corrupting the land, it's warping reality itself." Alric extended his staff, its tip glowing faintly. "Be on guard.
The void has a way of manifesting our fears."
As they ventured deeper, they encountered creatures unlike anything they'd seen before. Twisted amalgamations of wildlife and void energy, the beasts were both terrifying and pitiful. "We can't fight all of them," Li Mei said, raising a barrier to block an incoming attack. "We need to reach the source of the corruption."
Using their combined magic, they navigated through the hostile terrain, finally arriving at a massive rift in the ground.
Void energy poured from the fissure like a living storm.
"This is it," Alric said grimly.
"If we can stabilize this rift, we might be able to contain the spread." The two mages began their work, channeling their energy into the rift.
It was a dangerous process. The void fought back, lashing out with tendrils of dark energy.
"We're running out of time,"
Li Mei shouted, her hands trembling as she maintained the spell. "Hold steady," Alric urged. "We're almost there." With a final surge of power, the rift began to close. The corrupted land around them slowly started to stabilize, though the damage was far from undone.
"This is only the beginning," Li Mei said, wiping sweat from her brow.
"If the architects are using void energy as a weapon, we'll need a way to counter it."
"We'll find a way," Alric replied. Failure is not an option. Chapter 58, Uniting the Clans.
Meanwhile, Kang Wei and Fenglan traveled to the Frostclaw Highlands, home to several nomadic clans.
Known for their fierce independence, the clans had long resisted any form of alliance. "Remind me again why they'd listen to us." Fong Lan asked as they ascended a snowy trail.
Because we're offering them something they can't ignore, Kang Wei replied. A chance to fight back on their own terms. They reached a sprawling encampment where clan banners fluttered in the icy wind.
Warriors armed with crude but effective weapons eyed them warily. The clan leader, a towering man named Yorin, stepped forward. You don't look like merchants. State your purpose. We're here to offer an alliance, Kang Wei said. The architects are a threat to all of us. Together, we can stand against them. Yorin scoffed. The clans have survived for centuries without help. Why should we change now? Because survival isn't enough anymore, Fong Lan interjected. The architects won't stop until they've destroyed everything you've built. Alone, you might endure for a while, but together, we can win. Yorin studied her for a moment before grinning. You've got spirit. I like that. But words aren't enough to convince me. If you want our support, you'll have to prove your worth. What did you have in mind? Kang Wei asked cautiously.
Yorin pointed to the mountains. There's a beast terrorizing our hunting grounds, a void-warped abomination.
Kill it, and we'll consider your offer. Fong Lan smirked. Sounds like fun.
The hunt was grueling, the beast a massive, mutated predator that seemed impervious to conventional weapons.
But with clever tactics and unrelenting determination, Kang Wei and Fong Lan managed to bring it down.
When they returned with the creature's head, Yorin laughed heartily.
You've earned my respect and my allegiance. The clans will fight alongside you. Chapter 59, Plans of the Architects.
Back at their stronghold, the architects were already planning their next move. Within a shadowy council chamber, high-ranking overseers gathered around a projection of the Voidlands. The destruction of the central nexus has set us back, one overseer admitted, his tone bitter. But the rebels' success is a fleeting illusion. We will crush their hopes and remind them of their insignificance. Another overseer, her voice calm and icy, replied, their growth is their weakness. The more allies they gather, the more vulnerable they become. We will sow discord among their ranks and turn their strength against them. At the head of the table sat a figure cloaked in shadows, their voice barely above a whisper but carrying immense authority. Let them gather their forces. When the time comes, we will unleash our full might. Their rebellion will be the spark that consumes their world. The overseers bowed, their eyes glinting with malice. The architects' counteroffensive had already begun. Chapter 60, The Architect's Shadow. The architects moved with precision, their strategies as cold and calculated as ever. A shadowy figure named Aravan, known as the Architect of Deception, was tasked with dismantling the rebellion from within. Aravan was no ordinary overseer, his mastery of manipulation and illusion was unparalleled, making him the perfect agent to infiltrate and destabilize the growing resistance. Disguised as a wandering mercenary, Aravan approached smaller factions aligned with the rebellion. Using lies and half-truths, he planted seeds of doubt about Mu's leadership and the guild's intentions. He whispered tales of betrayal and self-interest, claiming the guild sought power for themselves rather than freedom for all. The architects may be cruel, he told a group of hesitant warriors from the Ashen Brigade, but at least they're honest in their goals. Can you say the same for these rebels? How long before they abandon you when things get tough? His words began to spread like poison, reaching even the ears of some within the guild. Whispers of mistrust grew, threatening the fragile unity Mu and his team had worked so hard to build. Chapter 61, The Void's Price. Li Mei and Alric returned to the guild's base, their findings on void energy weighing heavily on their minds. They called a meeting with Mu and the other core members to share their discoveries. The void energy isn't just a weapon, it's alive, Alric began. It adapts, evolves, and seeks to consume. Closing the rift in the Veiled Woods was only a temporary solution. More rifts are appearing, and each one grows harder to contain. Li Mei added, we believe the architects are using the rifts as anchors, connecting our world to their dimension. If they open enough of them, they won't need to invade, they'll simply merge their reality with ours. Mu's expression darkened. Then we need to stop the rifts at their source. Can we track where they're originating? Alric nodded. It's possible, but it will require an enormous amount of energy and time we might not have. We'll make the time, Mu said firmly. This is our priority. If the void overtakes our world, everything we're fighting for will be lost. Chapter 62, Seeds of Doubt. In the following days, the effects of Erevan's manipulation began to manifest. A skirmish between two allied factions over resources escalated into a full-blown conflict, forcing Mu to intervene. This is exactly what the architects want, Mu said, standing between the two groups. They want us to turn on each other so they can crush us without lifting a finger. A leader from the Ashen Brigade sneered. Easy for you to say. You're sitting at the top while the rest of us bleed on the front lines. What guarantees do we have that you won't abandon us when it suits you? Fong Lan stepped forward, her voice sharp. You think Mu hasn't bled for this cause? He's risked everything more than most of you can imagine. If you have doubts, fine. But don't let your fear make you a pawn of the architects. Her words silenced the crowd, but the tension remained. After the meeting, Mu gathered his closest allies. We need to find the source of these rumors, he said. Someone is undermining us, and we can't afford to let it continue. I'll handle it, Kang Wei volunteered. If there's a spy in our midst, I'll root them out. Chapter 63, The Frostclaw Offensive. With trust among their allies faltering, the guild had to act quickly to maintain momentum. They received intelligence that the architects were fortifying a key rift site in the Frostclaw Highlands, using it to deploy Voidborn reinforcements across the region. Mu decided to launch a preemptive strike, rallying their forces for a coordinated attack. We can't afford to let them strengthen their position, he told the assembled leaders. This is our chance to hit them hard and show our allies that we're still united. The battle in the Frostclaw Highlands was fierce. The Voidborn had constructed massive defensive fortifications around the rift, and their numbers seemed endless. Zhao Chang led the charge, his shield absorbing wave after wave of attacks as he carved a path for their forces. Behind him, Li Mei unleashed a torrent of magical energy, targeting the rift itself in an attempt to destabilize it. Fong Lan and Kang Wei worked together to take out key defensive positions, using their speed and precision to outmaneuver the enemy. Mu faced off against the Architect Overseer commanding the Voidborn. Their clash was intense, the air around them crackling with energy. Despite the Overseer's power, Mu's skill and determination proved overwhelming. With the Overseer defeated and the rift destroyed, the battle was won. The victory reignited hope among their allies, silencing some of the doubts that had plagued them. Chapter 64, Confronting the Truth. Back at the base, Kang Wei's investigation bore fruit. He uncovered evidence pointing to Erevan's infiltration, though the architect's true identity remained a mystery. We know someone's been spreading lies, Kang Wei reported to Mu and the others. But they're good, too good. Whoever they are, they're using magic to mask their presence. Li Mei frowned. If they're using magic, then we might be able to track them. But it will take time and resources. We don't have much of either, Mu said. But we can't let this go unchecked. Keep digging. Whoever this is, they're a threat to everything we've built. As the guild worked to uncover Erevan's identity, the shadow of the architects loomed ever larger. The rebellion was growing stronger, but so were the challenges they faced. Mu stood at the heart of it all, his resolve unwavering. They can try to divide us. They can try to break us. But as long as we stand together, they will never win. Chapter 65, The Traitor Among Us. Kang Wei's relentless pursuit of the infiltrator led him to a series of subtle inconsistencies in supply logs and troop movements. Someone was manipulating resources and deliberately redirecting blame to spark conflicts between factions. His suspicion deepened when he noticed strange magical residue on one of the intercepted messages, evidence of powerful illusion magic. He brought his findings to Mu, Li Mei, and Fong Lan in a private meeting. This residue is the key, Kang Wei explained, holding up the fragment of parchment. It's not ordinary magic. Whoever is behind this isn't just skilled, they're an architect agent. Li Mei examined the parchment, her brow furrowing. This isn't just deception. It's designed to cloak the caster's identity and intentions. Breaking through this will take time and precision.
Fonlon leaned back, arms crossed. So we've got a snake in our midst, and they're good at staying hidden. What's the plan?
We set a trap, Mu said, his voice firm.
Let them think they're succeeding. We'll feed them false information and see where it leads.
Chapter 66, A Web of Lies. The trap was carefully laid. Li Mei crafted a series of false messages suggesting a critical weakness in the guild's defenses, a supposedly vulnerable supply line near the Ravenspire Ridge. The messages were subtly circulated, designed to lure the infiltrator into taking action. Meanwhile, Zhao Chang and a team of trusted warriors set up an ambush at the ridge. Hidden in the dense forest, they waited for any sign of Voidborn or suspicious activity.
For days, there was nothing.
But on the fourth night, shadows stirred. A small group of Voidborn scouts appeared, guided by none other than Erevan himself, still disguised as a mercenary. Zhao Chang signaled his team to hold position. They watched as Erevan conjured a portal, bringing through a larger force of Voidborn. "It's him," Zhao Chang whispered into his communication crystal.
"The infiltrator." "Engage," Mu's voice replied. The ambush was swift and brutal.
Zhao Chang's team attacked from all sides, cutting down the Voidborn before they could react. Erevan, however, was prepared. He unleashed a wave of illusion magic, creating duplicates of himself to confuse his attackers.
"You think you've caught me?" Erevan sneered, his voice echoing from every direction. "You're nothing but insects playing at rebellion."
Zhao Chang's shield glowed as he activated a counterspell rune, dispelling the illusions.
"You've underestimated us."
The fight was intense, with Erevan using his magic to evade capture. But Kang Wei and Li Mei arrived just in time, combining their abilities to trap him in a binding spell. "You'll regret this," Erevan hissed as he was dragged back to the base.
"You have no idea what's coming." Chapter 67, Unmasking the Spy. Interrogating Erevan proved challenging.
His mastery of deception extended to his words, and every question he answered seemed to lead to more confusion.
"You think defeating me changes anything?" Erevan taunted. "I'm just a piece on the board."
"The architects are the true players, and you're already losing."
Li Mei, however, wasn't deterred.
She used a truth-binding spell, forcing Erevan to reveal fragments of his plans.
"The rifts are keys," Erevan admitted reluctantly.
"Each one we open strengthens the bridge between our world and yours.
Soon, there will be no distinction between the two." "And how many rifts are there?" Mu demanded. Erevan laughed. "More than you can handle."
With no more useful information to extract, Erevan was placed in a secure cell. But his words lingered in everyone's minds, fueling both fear and determination. Chapter 68, The Architect's Gambit. Far from the guild's base, the architects were preparing their next move. Erevan's capture was an annoyance, but not a major setback. The high overseers convened in their shadowy citadel, discussing how to escalate their assault. "The rebels are proving more resourceful than expected," one overseer remarked. "Then we apply more pressure," another replied. "Activate the rift engines. Let them see the true scale of our power." At the center of the citadel, a massive device hummed to life. The rift engine was a terrifying creation, capable of opening multiple void rifts simultaneously. With it, the architects intended to unleash chaos on an unprecedented scale. Chapter 69, Rallying the Allies. Mu and his team knew they had to act fast. The intelligence gathered from Erevan, combined with their own observations, pointed to a coordinated attack by the architects. "This is our moment to strike," Mu told the gathered leaders of the alliance. "If the architects activate this rift engine, it could be the end of everything. We need to destroy it before it's too late." General Huang stood. "The Bastion will stand with you. Whatever it takes, we'll see this through." The leaders of the Frostclaw clans, the Whispering Coven, and other factions echoed his sentiment. The rebellion was battered but not broken, and their unity had never been stronger. Chapter 70, The Final March. With their forces assembled, the rebellion marched toward the Architect's citadel. The journey was grueling, filled with skirmishes against Voidborn sentries and traps. But the determination of the rebels never wavered. As they reached the edge of the architect's territory, Mu addressed his army one final time. "This is it," he said, his voice carrying over the assembled warriors. "Everything we've fought for, everything we've sacrificed, comes down to this. The architects think they can break us. Let's show them how wrong they are."
The rebels roared their approval, their spirits unyielding.
The final battle was at hand, and they were ready to face whatever came next.
Chapter 71, The Citadel of Shadows. The rebellion's army stood at the edge of the architect's citadel, a massive, monolithic structure pulsating with void energy.
Dark spires reached into the stormy skies, and the ground itself seemed alive, twisting and writhing with corrupted magic. Mu, standing at the forefront, surveyed the battlefield. Every instinct screamed of danger, but there was no room for hesitation. The Rift engine was somewhere inside, and destroying it was their only hope of saving the world.
"Positions!"
Mu commanded, his voice cutting through the roaring wind. The army divided into specialized units. Zhao Chang led the vanguard, his shield glowing with protective enchantments.
Li Mei and Alric took their positions at the rear, prepared to counter any magical onslaught.
Kang Wei and Feng Lan moved with the stealth units, ready to infiltrate the citadel and locate the Rift engine. "Stay focused," Mu said, addressing the leaders.
"We take the fight to them, but don't get reckless. Watch each other's backs."
With a deep breath, he raised his sword.
"Advance." Chapter 72, The Storm Breaks.
The rebels surged forward, and the void-born defenders emerged to meet them. Twisted monstrosities of flesh and shadow poured from the citadel, their otherworldly screams echoing across the battlefield. Zhao Chang's vanguard clashed with the first wave, shields locking as spears thrust forward. The ground quaked beneath their feet, but they held firm.
"Hold the line!"
Zhao Chang roared, his shield absorbing a massive blast of void energy. Li Mei and Alric unleashed devastating spells from the rear, targeting the larger voidborn creatures. Fire and lightning tore through the enemy ranks, creating openings for the melee fighters to advance. Meanwhile, Kang Wei and Feng Lan slipped past the chaos, leading their infiltration team into the citadel's shadowy depths. "This place is a maze," Feng Lan muttered, her daggers drawn.
"Stick to the plan," Kang Wei replied. "We find the Rift engine, then signal the others." Chapter 73, Into the Heart of Darkness.
Inside the citadel, Kang Wei and Feng Lan's team encountered fierce resistance. Architect sentinels, clad in void-forged armor, blocked their path. These were no ordinary foes, their movements were unnervingly precise, and their weapons crackled with deadly energy.
"We don't have time for this,"
Feng Lan said, dodging a slash from one of the sentinels. Kang Wei parried another blow, countering with a precise strike to the sentinel's exposed joints.
"Then we make time."
The battle inside the citadel was a deadly game of skill and speed. The rebels fought valiantly, their determination driving them forward despite the odds. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a massive chamber at the citadel's core. There, suspended in a swirling vortex of energy, was the Rift engine. The device pulsed with malevolent power, its mechanisms fed by streams of void energy. "There it is," Kang Wei said, his voice grim. "Now we just have to figure out how to destroy it."
Chapter 74, The Architects Strike Back.
Outside, the battle raged on.
The Voidborn unleashed wave after wave of reinforcements, but the rebels held their ground. Mu faced an overseer clad in dark armor, their blade crackling with void energy.
The two clashed in a blur of motion, sparks flying with each strike. "You're fighting a losing battle," the overseer sneered. "The architects are eternal.
Your rebellion is a fleeting dream."
Mu gritted his teeth, countering with a powerful blow that sent the overseer staggering.
"Dreams are stronger than you think."
With a surge of determination, he disarmed the overseer and drove his blade through their chest. As the overseer dissolved into shadows, Mu turned his attention to the citadel. "Hold the line," he shouted.
"Give them the time they need." Chapter 75, Destroying the Rift Engine.
Inside the chamber, Kang Wei and Feng Lan worked quickly. Alric had joined them, using his knowledge of void magic to analyze the Rift engine.
It's too complex to disable directly, Alric said, frustration in his voice. But if we overload it, we might be able to destroy it and the Citadel with it. Great, Fonglan said. And how do we not die in the process? Alric smirked faintly. You don't. Kang Wei frowned. There has to be another way. Before Alric could reply, the chamber trembled as a massive figure emerged. A Voidborn general, twice the size of any they had faced before, loomed over them. Its voice was a deep, resonating growl. You will not touch the engine. Fonglan stepped forward, twirling her daggers. Guess we're doing this the hard way. The fight was brutal. The Voidborn general was a force of nature, its attacks devastating. But the rebels fought with everything they had, using speed and strategy to wear it down. As the general fell, Alric activated a series of runes around the rift engine. This will work, he said. But once it starts, we have minutes to get out. Kang Wei nodded. Then let's move. Chapter 76, The Final Escape. As the overload sequence began, the Citadel started to collapse. Walls crumbled, and void energy erupted in violent surges. Kang Wei and Fonglan led the team out, dodging falling debris and waves of energy. The battle outside was still raging, but as the Citadel began to collapse, the Voidborn faltered. Fall back! Mu shouted, rallying the rebels. Get clear of the Citadel. The rebels retreated, their movements disciplined despite the chaos. As the Citadel imploded in a blinding surge of energy, a shockwave rippled across the battlefield, obliterating the remaining Voidborn. When the dust settled, the rebels stood victorious. Chapter 77, A Fragile Hope. The destruction of the Citadel and the Rift engine was a turning point. The Architect's forces were in disarray, and the Void Rifts began to stabilize. But the cost was heavy. Many had fallen, and the rebellion's forces were battered. Mu stood with his core team, looking out over the battlefield. We've won a battle, he said, but the war isn't over. Li Mei nodded. The Architects will regroup. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. For now, though, the rebels allowed themselves a moment of relief. They had faced the Architects' full might and emerged victorious. The fight for their world continued, but for the first time, they dared to hope. Chapter 78, Rebuilding the Resistance. The battlefield was eerily quiet, save for the groans of the wounded and the distant rumble of collapsing ruins. Mu stood in the center of the gathered survivors, his face grim but determined. We've struck a blow they won't soon forget, he said, addressing the weary soldiers. But this is far from over. The Architects will retaliate, and we need to be ready. Zhao Cheng approached, his armor scorched but his shield still intact. The soldiers are shaken but willing to continue. They'll follow you, Mu. What's the next move? Mu looked at the remains of the Citadel, its dark spires reduced to rubble. We consolidate our forces and rebuild. Every faction, every ally, we need them united. This victory showed us what we're capable of, but we can't afford division anymore. Li Mei joined them, a grim expression on her face. The Rift engine's destruction bought us time, but the void energy it unleashed won't just disappear. It's saturating the land, corrupting everything it touches. We'll need to find a way to cleanse it. Fonglan sheathed her daggers, her movements precise despite her exhaustion. And what about the Architects? Erevan warned us that they're already planning their next move. Mu's jaw tightened. We find them before they find us. Chapter 79, The Gathering Storm. Over the following weeks, the rebellion worked tirelessly to rebuild and regroup. Messages were sent to allied factions, urging them to send reinforcements. Supplies were redistributed, and the injured were tended to with whatever resources they had. In the meantime, Kang Wei continued his investigations into the void energy's lingering effects. He discovered that the energy wasn't just a physical corruption, it was psychological, whispering to those exposed for too long, tempting them with promises of power. This isn't just a battlefield threat, Kang Wei warned during a council meeting. The void energy is insidious. It's trying to turn us against ourselves. We'll need wards, Li Mei said.
Protection for anyone operating in corrupted areas. I can start crafting them, but it will take time.
Do what you can, Mu replied. We can't let the void tear us apart from within.
Meanwhile, Feng Lan scouted the surrounding areas, searching for signs of architect activity. She returned with troubling news. The architects are already rebuilding, she reported.
I found evidence of a new rift forming in the Emberstone Canyon. It's smaller than the last, but it's growing fast. Mu nodded. Then we hit it before they can reinforce it. We can't let them regain momentum. Chapter 80, Assault on Emberstone. The attack on Emberstone Canyon was swift and decisive.
Mu led a small strike force, aiming to destroy the nascent rift before it could become another stronghold. The canyon was a maze of jagged cliffs and treacherous paths, its air heavy with the stench of void energy. The team moved cautiously, every step echoing against the stone walls. As they approached the rift, they encountered a new type of voidborn. These creatures were smaller and faster, their forms flickering like shadows. Stay sharp, Zhao Chang said, raising his shield.
These things don't fight like the others. The Voidborn attacked with unsettling coordination, using the terrain to their advantage.
But the rebels fought back with equal ferocity, their teamwork honed by countless battles. Li Mei unleashed a wave of fire, forcing the creatures into the open, where Feng Lan picked them off with deadly precision. Finally, they reached the rift itself. Alric, who had joined the mission to provide magical expertise, examined it closely. It's unstable, he said. We can collapse it, but we'll need to overload it with energy.
Do it, Mu ordered. As Alric worked, the Voidborn intensified their attacks.
The team formed a defensive perimeter, holding off wave after wave while Alric chanted the spell. Almost there, he shouted, his voice strained. A massive Voidborn, its body wreathed in dark flames, emerged from the rift. It charged toward Alric, but Mu intercepted it, his sword blazing with energy. You're not getting through, Mu growled, engaging the creature in a fierce duel. With a final burst of light, the rift collapsed, consuming the remaining Voidborn in a surge of energy. The team retreated, battered but victorious. Chapter 81, Shadows of Betrayal. Back at the base, tensions were rising. The corruption from the void energy was affecting some of the soldiers, making them paranoid and aggressive. During a routine patrol, a heated argument between two factions nearly escalated into violence. This isn't normal, Zhao Chang said, reporting the incident to Mu. The void energy is messing with their heads. Mu sighed, running a hand through his hair. We need to address this before it spirals out of control. Li Mei, how are the wards coming? They're ready, she replied. But we don't have enough for everyone. We'll need to prioritize. Start with the frontline troops, Mu said. And double the patrols. If the architects are planning something, we can't afford to be caught off guard. Meanwhile, Feng Lan uncovered troubling information during her reconnaissance missions. Some soldiers were meeting in secret, their loyalties shifting under the influence of the void. We've got traitors in the ranks, she told Conway. I overheard them talking about contacting the architects. They think siding with them is their best chance at survival. Conway's expression darkened. Then we root them out. Quietly. Chapter 82, The Architect's Ultimatum. The rebellion's efforts to stabilize their forces were interrupted by a chilling message from the architects. A shimmering projection appeared in the center of the base, depicting a masked overseer. Rebels, the overseer said, their voice cold and mocking. You think you've won a victory, but all you've done is delay the inevitable. Surrender now, and we may grant you mercy. Resist, and your world will burn. The message ended, leaving a tense silence in its wake. They're bluffing, Zhao Chang said. Maybe, Mu replied. But we can't take the chance. Double the preparations. If they're coming, we need to be ready. The rebellion stood at a crossroads. The architects' forces were regrouping, the void energy was spreading, and traitors lurked within their ranks. But Mu's resolve remained unshaken. They want us to break, he said, addressing the council. But we won't. We've come too far, sacrificed too much.
Whatever they throw at us, we'll face it together. Chapter 83, The Gathering Tempest.
The rebellion braced itself as the shadow of war loomed larger. The architects were regrouping, and their ultimatum had sent a wave of tension through the ranks. Inside the command tent, Mu stood with his core team, a map of the region spread before them.
We've confirmed reports of architect activity near the Voidspire Plateau, Conway said, pointing to a darkened section of the map. They're building something, but our scouts couldn't get close enough to confirm what. Li Mei frowned. If it's another Rift engine, we can't afford to let it reach completion.
The last one nearly destroyed us. It's worse than that, Fenglan said, stepping forward.
We've intercepted communications from their forces. They're planning an all-out assault on our strongholds. This isn't just a defensive move, it's the start of a larger campaign. Mu's jaw tightened. Then we need to hit them first.
If they're building something at Voidspire, we destroy it before they can use it.
Zhao Chang nodded.
A preemptive strike could catch them off guard, but we'll need to mobilize quickly.
They'll be expecting us. Chapter 84, The March to Voidspire.
The rebellion's forces moved swiftly, their resolve strengthened by the knowledge that this battle could determine the fate of their world.
Voidspire Plateau was a desolate expanse of jagged rocks and swirling void storms, the air thick with corruption.
Mu led the main assault force, while Conway and Fenglan infiltrated the enemy's camp to gather intelligence.
As the rebels approached the plateau, they encountered heavy resistance. Voidborn warriors and architect constructs blocked their path, their ranks bolstered by the plateau's corrupted terrain.
Keep pushing, Mu shouted, his sword glowing with energy as he cut through a Voidborn brute.
We can't let them slow us down.
Li Mei unleashed a barrage of fire and lightning, carving a path through the enemy ranks. Zhao Chang held the line, his shield absorbing powerful blasts of void energy. Meanwhile, Conway and Fenglan slipped through the shadows, avoiding detection as they scouted the enemy's defenses.
They're definitely building something, Conway whispered, peering through his spyglass. Looks like a void beacon.
If they activate that, they could open a rift large enough to bring through an army.
Fenglan's eyes narrowed. Then we destroy it.
But we'll need a distraction to get close.
Chapter 85, The Beacon of Despair. The beacon towered over the plateau, its structure pulsating with dark energy. Architect engineers and Voidborn overseers worked tirelessly to complete it, their movements efficient and relentless. As the main force engaged the enemy, Conway and Fenglan infiltrated the beacon's perimeter. Using stolen uniforms and forged identification sigils, they managed to blend in with the enemy's ranks.
Fenglan's heart raced as they approached the base of the structure.
We've got one shot at this, she whispered. If they spot us, it's over.
Then let's not get spotted, Conway replied, his voice calm despite the tension. They planted explosive charges along the beacon's foundation, careful to avoid detection. As they worked, Conway noticed something disturbing, a group of human prisoners being forced to assist in the construction.
We can't leave them here, he said, his voice hard. Fenglan hesitated. Freeing them will blow our cover. Conway's eyes met hers. Then we'll find another way. Chapter 86, The Battle Escalates. The main assault force fought fiercely, but the enemy's numbers seemed endless.
The void storms intensified, making visibility poor and movement treacherous. Mu faced a Voidborn commander, their blades clashing in a blinding display of power. You're fighting a futile battle, the commander sneered.
The void is eternal. Your resistance is nothing but a flickering candle in the dark.
Maybe, Mu replied, driving his blade through the commander's chest.
But we're not out yet.
Li Mei and Zhao Chang coordinated their efforts to hold the line, their combined magic and strength keeping the rebels from being overwhelmed. Suddenly, a massive pulse of energy erupted from the beacon, shaking the ground and sending waves of void energy across the battlefield.
They're trying to activate it, Li Mei shouted. Chapter 87, Shattering the Beacon.
Inside the enemy camp, Conway and Fenglan finished planting the charges. They moved quickly to free the prisoners, using stolen keys to unlock their restraints.
Stay quiet and follow us, Conway whispered to the frightened captives.
As they made their way out, an alarm sounded. The architects had discovered the charges.
Run! Phong Lan shouted, leading the prisoners toward the rebel lines. Kang Wei stayed behind, detonating the charges just as the enemy forces closed in.
The explosion was deafening, the beacon collapsing in a shower of debris and void energy. The shockwave knocked Kang Wei off his feet, but he managed to escape the worst of the blast. As he stumbled out of the rubble, he saw Phong Lan and the prisoners waving him over. "You're insane," Phong Lan said as he joined them. "Maybe," Kang Wei replied, grinning despite the pain. But it worked.
Chapter 88, A Fragile Victory.
The destruction of the beacon turned the tide of the battle.
With their focal point destroyed, the architects' forces fell into disarray. Mu rallied the rebels for a final push, driving the enemy from the plateau.
As the last of the Voidborn retreated, a weary cheer rose from the rebels. But the cost was high. The battlefield was littered with the bodies of the fallen, and the void energy had left scars that would not heal easily. Mu stood with his core team, his expression somber. "We've won the day, but the architects won't stop. They'll regroup, and they'll come back stronger."
Li Mei placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then so will we." Kang Wei and Phong Lan joined them, the freed prisoners among the crowd.
The sight of the rescued civilians brought a glimmer of hope to the weary soldiers. "We'll rebuild," Mu said, his voice firm. "We'll prepare for whatever comes next. This fight isn't over, but we'll face it together."
Chapter 89, The Weight of Leadership.
The battle at Voidspire Plateau had left its mark on everyone, but for Mu, the weight of leadership bore down heavier than ever. Sitting alone in his tent late at night, he stared at the map of their remaining strongholds, the corners marked with fresh blood from the battlefield. The silence was broken by the sound of someone entering. Mu looked up to see Zhao Chang, his shield still strapped to his back, though his armor was freshly polished.
"Couldn't sleep?"
Zhao asked, placing a flask of strong tea on the table.
"Too much on my mind," Mu replied, gesturing to the map.
"We won today, but it feels like we're only delaying the inevitable. The architects won't stop. And every time we fight, we lose more of our people." Zhao Chang sat across from him, his expression calm but resolute. "You think too much about the losses and not enough about the victories. That beacon, it could have unleashed hell on us. But we destroyed it. People survived because of you, Mu." "That's just it," Mu said, leaning forward. "People are surviving, but at what cost? Every decision I make, someone dies. How much longer can we keep this up before there's no one left?" Zhao Chang reached for the flask and poured a cup of tea. "As long as it takes." "You think I don't feel the same weight? Every soldier who dies, every shield I couldn't raise in time, I carry them with me too. But we keep going because if we don't, no one else will." Mu nodded, but the doubt lingered in his eyes.
Chapter 90, Li Mei's Secrets.
Li Mei had been restless since the battle. The void corruption that seeped into the land seemed to whisper to her, faint but persistent. She knew the dangers of listening too closely, but something about the whispers seemed almost familiar. Late one night, as she worked on crafting protective wards for the soldiers, the whispers grew louder. Her fingers trembled as she etched runes into a strip of cloth. "It's nothing," she muttered to herself. "Just the residual energy." But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that the void recognized her in some way. "Burning the midnight oil," a voice called out, startling her. She turned to see Kang Wei leaning against the doorway, his usual smirk in place. "You scared me," Li Mei said, setting down her tools.
"Sorry," Kang Wei said, though his tone suggested otherwise.
"You've been cooped up in here for hours.
Thought I'd check in." Li Mei hesitated.
She trusted Kang Wei, but she wasn't ready to share her suspicions about the void whispers.
Instead, she forced a smile. "Just trying to keep everyone safe," she said.
Kang Wei studied her for a moment, his smirk fading.
"You know, you don't have to do this alone.
Whatever's bothering you, we'll figure it out together."
Li Mei nodded, though her thoughts remained heavy. Chapter 91, Kang Wei's Gamble. Kang Wei had always been a risk-taker.
It was a trait that made him invaluable in the rebellion's most dangerous missions, but it also left him feeling like an outsider. While others viewed his actions as reckless, he saw them as necessary. After the Void Spire mission, Conway found himself drawn to one of the freed prisoners, a young boy named Ren who had shown remarkable courage during their escape. "You remind me of myself," Conway said, crouching down to the boy's level. "Except, you're probably smarter." Ren looked up at him with wide eyes. "I just wanted to help. I couldn't let them win." Conway smiled. "That's a good instinct. Keep it." As he ruffled the boy's hair, Fong Lan approached, her expression uncharacteristically soft. "You're good with kids," she said. "Didn't think you'd notice," Conway replied, standing. Fong Lan crossed her arms, her tone teasing. "You don't seem the type. Always charging into danger, acting like you're invincible." Conway chuckled. "Someone has to do it." Fong Lan's smile faded. "Just don't forget that you're not invincible. People care about you, even if you don't care about yourself." Her words lingered with Conway long after she walked away. Chapter 92, Fong Lan's Burden. Fong Lan was used to operating in the shadows, but the weight of her work was beginning to take its toll. Rooting out traitors among the rebellion was a thankless job, one that made her question her own trust in those around her. One night, as she prepared for another reconnaissance mission, she caught sight of Mu standing alone near the campfire. "Can't sleep either?" she asked, approaching him. Mu glanced at her, his expression weary. "Seems like no one can these days." Fong Lan sat beside him, staring into the flames. "You're doing everything you can, Mu. More than anyone could ask for." "That doesn't make it enough," he said quietly. Fong Lan hesitated before speaking. "You know, I've spent my whole life doing things that most people wouldn't understand. But here, with this rebellion, I finally feel like it's for something that matters." Mu looked at her, surprised by the vulnerability in her voice. "Whatever happens," she continued, "we're in this together. Don't forget that." For a moment, the weight on Mu's shoulders felt a little lighter. Chapter 93, The Architect's Influence. As the personal struggles of the rebellion's leaders unfolded, the Void corruption continued to spread. It wasn't long before the whispers began to affect more than just Li Mei. One soldier, a quiet man named Jian, began exhibiting erratic behavior. He claimed to hear voices promising him power if he betrayed the rebellion. During an interrogation, Fong Lan confronted him. "Why would you listen to them?" she demanded. "You know what the Void does to people." Jian's eyes were wild, his voice trembling. "It's not the Void, it's freedom. They showed me what this fight is really about. We can't win. But if we join them, we can survive." Fong Lan's expression hardened. "Survival at what cost? Your humanity?" Before Jian could respond, Mu entered the room. He placed a hand on Fong Lan's shoulder, signaling her to step back. "Jian," Mu said calmly, "whatever you think the architects promised you, it's a lie. They don't want allies, they want slaves." Jian hesitated, the conflict in his eyes clear. Finally, he broke down, sobbing. "I don't know what to believe anymore," he whispered. Mu knelt beside him. "Believe in us. We're not perfect, but we're fighting for something real. Don't let the Void take that away from you." Jian nodded, though the doubt in his eyes remained. Chapter 94, Li Mei's Revelation. The Void whispers grew louder as days passed, clawing at Li Mei's mind in a language both alien and eerily familiar. She tried to ignore them, focusing on crafting protective wards and assisting in the rebellion's recovery efforts, but the pull of the Void was relentless. One evening, while the camp slept, Li Mei ventured to the outskirts, where the air was thick with residual Void energy. The whispers seemed to beckon her, guiding her steps to a secluded clearing. "You cannot run from us," a deep, resonant voice echoed in her mind. Li Mei froze, her hands glowing faintly as she prepared a spell. "Show yourself," she demanded. A figure materialized before her, its form shifting and indistinct, as though it were a fragment of the Void itself. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and its voice resonated with both power and malice.
You carry our mark, the figure said, its tone almost reverent. The void has chosen you, child of fire. Li Mei's heart raced. I am nothing like you. The figure laughed, a sound that echoed like breaking glass. You cannot deny your connection to us. The power you wield, your affinity for destruction, comes from the void. Embrace it, and you will transcend the limitations of this mortal shell. Li Mei clenched her fists, her magic surging. I'd rather die than become one of you. The figure tilted its head, almost amused. You misunderstand. The void does not seek to consume you, it seeks to complete you. Reject us, and you will never know your true potential. Before she could respond, the figure dissolved into mist, leaving her alone in the clearing. Shaken, Li Mei returned to camp, her mind racing with questions. Was her power truly tied to the void? And if so, what did that mean for her place in the rebellion? Chapter 95, The Traitor Within. The rebellion's struggles with internal dissent escalated when a high-ranking officer, Captain Liang, was caught attempting to sabotage one of their supply lines. He's been acting strange ever since the battle at Void Spire, Zhao Chang said during a council meeting. I should have seen it sooner. Mu leaned forward, his expression grim. What do we know about his motives? He claims the architects promised him a position of power in their new order, Feng Lan said, her tone laced with disgust. But I think the void got to him. He's not in his right mind. Kong Wei shook his head. Whether it's the void or his own greed, he's a liability. If there are more like him, we're in serious trouble. Mu stood, his voice resolute. We can't let this spread. Interrogate Liang and find out if he was working alone. And double the patrols. If there are more traitors, I want them rooted out before they can cause more damage. As the council dispersed, Mu caught Feng Lan's arm. I need you to handle this quietly. We can't let word of this spread, it'll destroy morale. Feng Lan nodded. Consider it done. Chapter 96, A Test of Loyalty. Feng Lan's investigation revealed a disturbing pattern. Several soldiers who had been exposed to high levels of void energy during the Void Spire mission were exhibiting erratic behavior. She confronted one of them, a young recruit named Lin, in the quiet of the medical tent. I know what you're thinking, Feng Lan said, her voice calm but firm. You think the void has the answers. That it can save us. Lin flinched, his eyes darting nervously. I didn't ask for this. The whispers, they're always there. They say I can be stronger, that I can protect everyone if I just. If you just give in, Feng Lan finished. That's how they work. They prey on your fears and your hopes, but it's all lies. The void doesn't empower, it consumes. Lin's shoulders slumped, tears streaming down his face. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. Feng Lan softened her tone. We're all scared. But you're not alone. Talk to me, to Kong Wei, to anyone. We'll help you. But you have to fight this. Lin nodded, though his resolve seemed fragile. Chapter 97, Mu's Breaking Point. The mounting pressure of the rebellion's struggles began to take its toll on Mu. Despite his best efforts to project strength, the cracks in his armor were beginning to show. One night, as he stood on the edge of the camp, staring out at the dark horizon, Zhao Chang approached him. You've been quiet, Zhao said, leaning on his shield. That's never a good sign. Mu sighed. How do you keep going, Chang? After everything we've lost, after every battle that feels like it costs more than it's worth, how do you keep believing we can win? Zhao was silent for a moment, then said, because if I don't, who will? You think I don't have doubts? I do. Every day. But I look at the people we're fighting for, the ones who can't fight for themselves, and I know giving up isn't an option. Mu turned to him, his expression weary. I don't know how much longer I can carry this. You don't have to carry it alone, Zhao said firmly. We're all in this together. Lean on us, Mu. That's what we're here for. For the first time in days, Mu felt a glimmer of hope. Chapter 98, A Glimpse of Light. Despite the challenges, the rebellion found small moments of solace.
The freed prisoners from Void Spire had begun integrating into the camp, their resilience inspiring those around them. Kang Wei spent his evenings teaching Ren, the boy he had rescued, how to defend himself. "You're a quick learner," Kang Wei said, watching as Ren practiced a basic stance.
"Keep this up, and you'll be teaching me in no time."
Ren grinned, the first genuine smile Kang Wei had seen in days. Meanwhile, Li Mei worked tirelessly to perfect her wards, though her encounter with the Void still haunted her. She hadn't told anyone about the whispers, but she felt a growing urgency to uncover the truth about her powers. And in the quiet moments, when the camp settled into an uneasy peace, Mu found himself thinking about his team, the people who had become his family in this war. They weren't perfect, and the odds were against them. But together, they were a force to be reckoned with.
Chapter 99, The Void's Embrace.
Li Mei's sleepless nights grew longer as the whispers in her mind became impossible to ignore. She tried meditation, crafting stronger wards, and even isolating herself from the camp, but nothing silenced the persistent voice. One night, desperate for answers, she ventured into the heart of the corrupted zone that bordered the camp. The land was twisted and lifeless, the air heavy with the acrid scent of void energy. As she moved deeper into the zone, the whispers sharpened into words. "You seek the truth," the voice echoed, resonating through the barren landscape. Li Mei spun around, her magic sparking to life in her hands.
"I seek to end you." A ripple passed through the air, and the same indistinct figure from before materialized.
Its form seemed more defined now, almost humanoid, though its features were still shrouded in darkness. "You fight against your nature," the figure said, its tone almost mournful.
"Why deny the gift that flows through your veins?
You were born of the void, forged in its fire.
Accept it, and you will become unstoppable."
"I wasn't born of the void," Li Mei spat, though doubt crept into her voice.
The figure laughed softly. "Are you so sure? You feel it, don't you?
The void's power calls to you because it is yours to command.
Deny it, and you deny your destiny."
Li Mei's magic flared, her defiance clear despite her unease.
"If the void made me, then it made a mistake. I'll destroy you and everything you stand for."
The figure's laughter faded, replaced by a chilling silence. "We shall see, child of fire. But know this, the void is patient.
You will come to us in time."
As the figure dissolved into mist, Li Mei stood alone, her heart pounding. She didn't know what the void wanted, but one thing was certain: she needed answers about her past, and she needed them now.
Chapter 100, A Call to Action.
Back at camp, Mu convened the council to discuss their next steps. Reports indicated that the architects were regrouping, their forces concentrating near the Rift Spire Basin, a key location that could serve as a launching point for an invasion. "If they fortify the basin, we'll lose our chance to push them back," Zhao Chang said, his tone grim.
"We need to act fast." Feng Lan nodded. "But we can't rush in blindly. The last time we faced them head-on, we barely survived. We need a strategy."
Mu looked around the room, his gaze settling on each of his core team members.
"We've faced worse odds before.
If we hit them with a coordinated attack, we can disrupt their plans and buy ourselves more time."
Kang Wei smirked. "Sounds like another suicide mission. Count me in." Li Mei, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. "If we're going to the Rift Spire Basin, I need to come with you. There's something there I need to see." Mu frowned. "Li Mei, if this is about the void."
"It's always about the void," she interrupted, her voice sharp.
"I can feel it pulling me there. If we're going to stop the architects, I need to understand what I'm dealing with."
The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in.
Finally, Mu nodded. "Then we'll face it together."